Chapter 295. Mo Shi jumped into the crowd of the Cheng family like a tiger in a flock of sheep. He punched out with both fists, killing everything in sight. Those Cheng family members, as long as they were hunters below level 8, couldn't even take one punch from him. Even if some of them had already condensed a genetic weapon in front of Mo Shi, it was only a matter of one punch. Moreover, his fists contained some kind of terrifying hidden force. As long as they hit the opponent, some kind of shockwave would be transmitted, shattering the opponent's dantian. So as long as they were hit by his fists, there was almost no chance of survival. The keyboard player controlled more than 10 mechas and aimed at Mo Shi, but he didn't dare to shoot. Because if he shot now, he might accidentally injure the Cheng family members. Seeing this, the head of the Cheng family, Cheng Chengqing, couldn't help but be furious. Ever since he became a hunter, it had always been the Cheng family bullying others. When had anyone dared to bully the Cheng family? Today, this kid, a mere level 5 hunter, dared to come to their door and kill so many Cheng family members. Preposterous! How preposterous! Thinking of this, the head of the Cheng family jumped and almost instantly appeared in front of Mo Shi. Mo Shi also felt that something was wrong. He immediately used the dragon shadow step. In an instant, he escaped from the crowd. The next moment, he had already entered the Cheng family's courtyard. The entire Cheng family's courtyard was filled with buildings and looked like a village. Mo Shi entered and punched the Cheng family members whenever he met them. Puff! A level 1 hunter exploded, blood splattering on the snow-white wall next to him like a blooming flower. A prompt immediately appeared in his mind. Killed a level 1 hunter. Obtained 1 drop of Titan dragon blood. Another punch landed on the chest of a Cheng family member. It directly penetrated the chest of the Cheng family member. Killed a level 3 hunter. Obtained 3 drops of Titan dragon blood. This was the purpose of Mo Shi jumping into the Cheng family. Originally, he only needed to summon the sea dragon clone to easily flatten the entire Cheng family. But in that case, he wouldn't be able to obtain the dragon blood. Therefore, he came to the Cheng family to kill these Cheng family members one punch at a time. At this time, Cheng Chengqing was already beyond angry. In fact, their Cheng family's courtyard also had a protective energy shield. However, that was to defend against external attacks. But now that this kid had already jumped into the Cheng family's courtyard, the protective energy shield had already lost its effect. Who would have thought that the Cheng family of Yuzhou would be defeated by a mere LV5 scavenger? Brat, prepare to die! Cheng Chengqing roared. In a flash, he had already entered the Cheng clan's courtyard. His gaze locked onto Mo Shi's position. Then, he condensed an energy weapon on his right arm and blasted it towards Mo Shi. When the Cheng family members saw that their family head had personally made a move, they immediately calmed down. The clan head had never failed before. What's more, this kid was just a level 5 hunter. How could he withstand the attack of the family head? Mo Shi thought so too. Seeing that this hunter Cheng Chengqing had already made his move, he naturally did not dare to be careless. What a joke! After all, he was a desolate hunter. He didn't dare to face an energy beam head-on. Thinking of this, he quickly moved his mind and released the Sea Dragon avatar from his personal reservoir. The moment the Sea Dragon avatar appeared, it saw Cheng Chengqing's energy beam shooting towards it. It roared excitedly. He opened his mouth and swallowed the beam of energy. Damn! F***ck. What the hell is this? Is it a wild beast? Is there such an abnormal wild beast? After all, it was the first time in their lives that these people had seen a monster that could swallow energy. Mo Shi was also stunned. He knew that the Sea Dragon avatar could swallow the opponent's energy. But in the past, it had only swallowed the opponent's energy after killing them. But this time, it had directly swallowed the energy beam shot by the opponent. Was this even possible? But Mo Shi quickly understood. This was because the Cheng family head's strength was much weaker than the Sea Dragon avatar's. Its energy beam, in the eyes of others, was completely destructive. But for the Sea Dragon avatar, which was 4 levels higher than him and had thick skin, it was completely not enough. Seeing this, the Cheng family head's heart trembled. What the hell was this? Seeing that it had just swallowed his energy beam, its strength was actually much stronger than his. It was probably a mutant wild beast above level 2. This kid actually had such a trump card. No wonder he dared to compete with the Cheng family. But do you think I'm the only wild beast hunter in the Cheng family? It was a big mistake to think that way. Thinking of this, Cheng Chengqing suddenly knelt down and looked at the deepest part of the Cheng family's courtyard. That was the Cheng family's forbidden area. Except for the Cheng family head, no one was allowed to enter. Even Cheng Chengqing himself only had a chance to enter once a month. He shouted loudly, "The Cheng family is in danger, please come out." When the Cheng family heard He Chengqing's words, they were all stunned. When the monster first appeared, they didn't think much of it. After all, the family head was a level 1 wild beast hunter. With his strength, it shouldn't be difficult for him to deal with the monster. But now, the family head actually said that the Cheng family was in danger and asked the powerful existence of the Cheng family to come out. It was obvious that the strength of this monster was far beyond that of the family head. But soon, everyone calmed down. The Cheng family didn't only have this little strength on the surface. Their strongest trump card was actually the Cheng family's ancestor. This ancestor was now a level 3 wild beast hunter. Even in the whole of Yuzhou, there were only a few people who could reach the level of a level 3 wild beast hunter. Even if the ancestor came out, he wouldn't be able to stop this mutated desolate beast? They had never thought of such an outcome. After all, a level 3 wild beast hunter wasn't something a level 1 wild beast hunter could compare to. This mutated desolate beast could withstand the family head's attack, but in front of the ancestor, it could only kneel. When Mo Shi heard the Cheng family head's shout, he smiled coldly. On his back, the blood dragon wings appeared. He directly rose tens of thousands of meters into the air, overlooking everything below. It was better for him to stay away from a battle between wild beast hunters. He didn't want to get involved. At this moment, in the deepest part of the Cheng family's courtyard, a figure slowly floated in the air. This person was dressed in brown clothes, and his white hair was casually draped behind his head. His face looked bony, as if there wasn't a trace of flesh, just skin wrapped around bones. This person was the Cheng family's ancestor, Cheng Fan, a level 3 wild beast hunter. At this moment, Cheng Fan was looking down at the entire Cheng family's courtyard, especially when he looked down at the mutated desolate beast, which was only about 15 meters long. The eyelids in the beast's sunken eye sockets slowly opened. 2 rays of light shot out from the turbid eyes. Chapter 296. Cheng Fan, the ancestor of the Cheng family, slowly opened his eyes. In the next moment, 2 beams of light shot out from his turbid eyes. Then, a flame quickly covered his entire mechanical arm. Soon, after the flame dissipated, his right arm had already condensed a genetic martial art. This was how a hunter condensed a genetic martial art. Compared to a hunter, the speed was several times faster. Cheng Fan's genetic martial art was a long spear. The long spear was pitch black and about 3 feet long. The moment the long spear condensed, Cheng Fan's entire aura changed. He was no longer that old and skinny old man. Instead, his figure was tall and straight, like a long spear, piercing the sky. He did not look at the sea dragon clone, but instead stared at Mo Shi. Although he also knew that the biggest threat now was this mutated desolate beast, he was still very confident. But he also knew that the person controlling this beast was this kid in front of him. His voice boomed like a clap of thunder. "How dare you be so arrogant?" Before he finished his words, his body shot up. In the air, the long spear in his hand pierced toward Mo Shi. Whoosh! The long spear extended by more than 500 meters in the air. It pierced toward Mo Shi. Ding! The tip of the spear pierced Mo Shi's chest. Everyone present rejoiced in their hearts. After being pierced by the Cheng family ancestor's spear, this kid was finished. However, the Cheng family ancestor was the only one who focused his gaze. What was going on? His long spear had pierced this kid. But it did not pierce his body. It only stopped on the surface of his body. It did not even pierce his skin. How was this possible? Could it be that this kid had some kind of armor that could not be seen with the naked eye? What kind of armor could withstand a strike from a level 3 desolate hunter? And even if he had such an armor that could withstand the tip of his spear. However, the huge force carried by the spear would definitely send this kid flying hundreds of meters away. But now, this kid was actually standing in the air. His body did not even sway. What was going on? This was completely beyond Cheng Fan's understanding. Actually, Cheng Fan couldn't be blamed for being short-sighted. Mo Shi's skill was simply too overpowered. What Mo Shi had just used was the absolute defense that he had obtained after his sea dragon avatar devoured a mutated corpse with a defensive talent in the 13th hunting ground. This skill had an extremely long cooldown. It was an astonishing 1 year. However, it was powerful enough to withstand a single attack from any creature on the Flaming Origin continent. That was awesome. As long as Mo Shi activated this skill, even the most powerful experts of the Flaming Origin continent would be able to kill them. It was impossible for the other party to kill him in one hit. Hence, absolute defense was similar to absolute defense when Happy activated Heaven's Prophet form, even though they were different methods. At this moment, Mo Shi was inwardly shocked. Actually, he didn't want to activate this skill. After all, the cooldown time was as long as a year. Once it was used up, it could not be used within a year. However, the other party had come too quickly and too suddenly. The distance of 10,000 meters was covered in an instant. Mo Shi had no choice but to activate this skill. At this moment, he used absolute defense to block the other party's fatal blow. Seeing that Cheng Fan's black spear had already lit up with a red and white light, it was obvious that he was about to activate his energy weapon. He suddenly felt a chill in his heart. One had to know that the energy weapon of a desolate hunter was much, much stronger than that of a normal hunter. A hunter's energy weapon could only be released 10 times in a battle at most. However, a hunter's energy weapon could be released at least 100 times. And its strength was far stronger than that of a hunter's energy weapon. Thinking of this, Mo Shi immediately controlled the Sea Dragon Avatar. The Sea Dragon Avatar jumped up thousands of meters almost instantly. It pounced straight towards Cheng Fan in the air. Its speed was so fast that even Cheng Fan could only dodge it by a hair's breadth. He didn't have time to use his energy weapon to deal with Mo Shi, so he directly aimed at the Sea Dragon Avatar. However, at this moment, the Sea Dragon Avatar opened its mouth. Boom! A bolt of lightning shot out directly and hit Cheng Fan in an instant. Buzz buzz buzz. On Cheng Fan's body, streaks of electricity flowed like small snakes. Shocked, Cheng Fan hurriedly retreated. At the same time, he flew high into the sky. However, the Sea Dragon Avatar once again spat out a bolt of lightning and hit Cheng Fan again. Cheng Fan was hit twice in a row. He felt his whole body go numb, and the energy in his body was very stagnant. He could only land on the ground. Mo Shi saw that this man and beast were fighting happily. He couldn't help but shake his head secretly. With the strength of the Sea Dragon Avatar, which was 2 levels higher than the other party, it could easily kill him in an instant. However, the Sea Dragon Avatar's intelligence was limited after all. When it wasn't under his control, its combat strength dropped significantly. Therefore, although it had the obvious upper hand, it still couldn't kill it in a short period of time. It seemed that he had to give it a hand. Thinking of this, Mo Shi took out the dragon's cave. He let his main body enter the dragon's cave. Then his consciousness switched to the Sea Dragon Avatar's body. The Sea Dragon Avatar's entire body suddenly trembled. The entire Sea Dragon Avatar's temperament suddenly changed. It was no longer as rigid as the 4-legged lizard from before. Just from its gaze, it could be seen that it was obviously more intelligent than before. Cheng Fan also realized this point. His heart was in a state of panic. Why did this mutated wild beast suddenly seem to have the intelligence of a human? At this moment, Mo Shi's level 4 dragon will spread out in an instant. Cheng Fan suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his head. At the same time, Mo Shi controlled the Sea Dragon Avatar to release several thick electric currents directly at Cheng Fan. Buzz buzz. Cheng Fan's head was already hurting because of the Dragon Will's attack on his consciousness. At this moment, he couldn't react in time and was directly electrocuted until his body was trembling. In the next moment, Mo Shi controlled the Sea Dragon Avatar and opened its cave-like huge mouth. Boom! A thick beam of bluish-white light was shot out directly. This beam of light was much, much thicker than the energy beam shot out by Cheng Fan just now. Before Cheng Fan could react, the thick energy beam engulfed Cheng Fan. No! Only a scream of despair could be heard. In that thick energy beam, Cheng Fan's clothes instantly melted. Then, the skin of his body also melted. His muscle tissue was scorched and turned to ashes. In the end, The white bones also turned to ashes. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, after Mo Shi took control of the Sea Dragon avatar, he killed Qing Fan in just 2 seconds. Everyone in the Cheng family thought that when their ancestor came out of seclusion, the earth would shake and the sky would spin. This kid would be finished. In the end, they never expected that their ancestor would come out of seclusion so arrogantly. But in less than a minute, he would be gone. This F***king plot shouldn't be like this. Chapter 297. Mo Shi controlled the Sea Dragon clone and killed the Cheng family's patriarch. The rest of the Cheng family members' expressions changed drastically. They had hoped that the Cheng family's patriarch would kill this kid after he came out of seclusion. But in just a minute, their patriarch was killed. The Cheng family's patriarch, Cheng Chengqing, was also shocked. Originally, he wanted to take advantage of the battle between the old ancestor and the mutated wild beast to kill that brat. As a result, when he flew to the place where Mo Shi was just a moment ago, Mo Shi suddenly disappeared. This made him feel a little strange. The next moment, the patriarch was killed. His expression changed drastically. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and fled. On the Flaming Land, the higher one's cultivation level was, the more they cherished their life. After all, after becoming a hunter, one's lifespan would reach 200 years. And after becoming a great hunter, one's lifespan would break through 500 years. Most people's state of mind would change when they reached the level of a hunter. In their eyes, power struggles were nothing more than passing clouds. Their biggest goal was to increase their strength by another realm and increase their lifespan by a few hundred years. Even if they stood up for the forces behind them, it was only because they could obtain more resources by relying on the forces behind them, which could be used to improve their own realms. For example, the Cheng family's patriarch was unwilling to come out if there was nothing important. If he had the time, he might as well cultivate. The reason he came out now was to protect the Cheng family. This way he could obtain more cultivation resources. Cheng Chengqing had just become a level 1 hunter, so his state of mind hadn't changed. That was why he was so angry and hateful after his son died. But now that the patriarch was dead, the most important thing in his mind was to save his life. Only by saving his life would he have unlimited possibilities in the future. So when he saw the patriarch die, his first reaction was to run. And he ran in the direction of the sky. This mutated desolate beast was strong, but it couldn't fly. As long as he flew into the sky, it couldn't do anything to him. However, it turned out that he was too naive. When Cheng Chengqing was more than 10,000 meters above the ground, the Sea Dragon clone suddenly opened its mouth. A sharp, ear-piercing sound came from its throat. Creak! This ear-piercing sound was like a sharp sword, piercing Cheng Chengqing who was in the sky. When Cheng Chengqing heard this voice, he immediately felt the energy in his dantian surging. It was as if they were out of his control, and they were darting all over his body. Energy rampage. To a cultivator, the most terrifying thing was when the energy went berserk. The flow of energy in the human body had a certain direction and order. There must be no chaos. If he panicked, he would suffer internal injuries at the very least and die at the very worst. At this moment, under the vibration of the Sea Dragon clone's sound wave attack, the energy in Cheng Chengqing's body gushed out of his dantian. They were running amok in his meridians and muscle tissues. Ah no! Ah! In the sky, Cheng Chengqing only felt a sharp pain in his body. Moreover, the location of the pain was different. 1 second it was a headache. The next second, it was a pain in his heart. And the next second, it was a pain in his little brother. His entire body fell from the sky. Bang! He landed heavily on the ground. He smashed a human-shaped hole in the ground that was paved with stones. Even though he was in the human-shaped hole, he didn't stay put. The intense pain in his body made him roar, struggle, and roll. At this moment, the Sea Dragon clone had rushed over. A tentacle instantly shot out. Although Cheng Chengqing was in pain, he still saw the terrifying tentacle. He hurriedly rolled away and dodged the attack in a sorry state. But at this moment, the suction cup on the tentacle suddenly emitted a huge suction force. It sucked Cheng Chengqing over. Then, a blood-colored vine shot out from the suction cup. Chi! It pierced into Cheng Chengqing's mouth. Then, hundreds and thousands of blood-colored tentacles grew from the blood-colored vine. Like the roots of a big tree, they spread out in Xianxia's body. One could see several tentacles crawling directly over his eyeballs. Then they spread to his entire face. As for his body, it quickly shriveled up. At this point, the head of the Cheng family, the level 1 desolate hunter Xianxia, was dead. At this moment, Mo Shi heaved a sigh of relief. He transferred his consciousness into his main body. The level 4 dragons will directly envelop the entire Qing family within a radius of 100 kilometers. Within this radius of 100 kilometers, a dragon's will barrier was formed. As long as it was a hunter below level 9, it would be impossible to break through this dragon's will barrier and escape. At the same time, Mo Shi's figure flashed and arrived in front of the Cheng family's keyboard player. He reached out and picked up the keyboard player whose fingers were still frantically moving on the keyboard, trying to control the mech. He gently squeezed. Crack! The keyboard player's neck was directly crushed into a bloody mess. After dealing with the biggest threat at the moment, the remaining level 9 and level 10 hunters were these level 9 and level 10 hunters. He came here today and would not let any of the Cheng family members escape. Soon, he had already arrived in front of a level 10 hunter. That level 10 hunter had already condensed an energy weapon. Seeing Mo Shi arrive, he hurriedly raised his energy weapon. But Mo Shi's sharp claws had already condensed. He didn't use any energy at all. The sharp claws suddenly swung out. An invisible force directly attacked the level 10 hunter. And the level 10 hunter also shot an energy light beam at Mo Shi. However, in front of Mo Shi's huge invisible force, the energy light beam was pitifully small. It was instantly swallowed. Even the level 10 hunter's body was swallowed by the invisible force. Rip! Under the sharpness of the invisible force, the level 10 hunter's body was directly split into dozens of pieces. It flew in all directions. At the same time, Mo Shi did not wait for the crowd to react and his figure moved again. He arrived behind Cheng Ming. Cheng Ming originally saw that the family head and the ancestor were already dead and was frantically running away. But at this moment, he suddenly felt danger coming from behind. With his combat experience, it was already too late to turn around. He hurriedly rolled to the side, trying to avoid the attack from behind. However, Mo Shi's invisible force occupied a distance of more than 10 meters. He could not avoid it at all by rolling to the side. He was still instantly swallowed and torn into pieces. It took him 5 minutes to get rid of the level 10 and level 9 hunters. Then, it was time to deal with the hunters below level 9. It was said that there were about 3,000 people from the Cheng family in the Cheng family town. Based on the calculations of each level 4 hunter, they could get 12,000 drops of dragon blood. Thinking of this, Mo Shi's figure flashed and instantly arrived behind 2 people from the Cheng family. He punched with his left fist. Bang! He punched with his right fist. Bang! Chapter 298. Mo Shi punched out with his left fist, killing a level 3 hunter. He punched out with his right fist, killing a level 7 hunter. As long as it was a hunter below level 9, he would be able to kill them with one punch. Of course, there were also those who were older. He would kill an old friend with one punch. As for the Cheng family members who were hundreds of kilometers away, they heard about the tragic situation of the Cheng family. They hurriedly packed their things and were about to escape. Before today, they were lamenting because they could not get close to the Cheng family's courtyard. After all, the closer they were to the Cheng family's courtyard, the higher their status in the Cheng family. But now, they were secretly rejoicing. Luckily, they were still 100 kilometers away from the Cheng family's courtyard. This way they would have time to escape. However, just as they stepped on their flying skateboards and flew into the air, bang! It was as if they had crashed into an invisible wall. Their whole bodies immediately fell down. They relied on their valiant strength to stabilize their bodies. However, everyone's heart was slightly shocked. Not good, there's an invisible barrier. The people behind him hurriedly stopped. Then, one by one, they tried to use their genetic weapons to stab forward. Sure enough, their genetic weapons all hit an invisible barrier. Then, they tried to use their genetic weapons to attack this invisible barrier. But regardless of whether it was their genetic weapons or energy weapons, they were unable to break this invisible barrier. A psychic grandmaster tried to check, and his face immediately turned serious. Seeing this, the rest asked, What's wrong? That psychic grandmaster replied, It's a psychic barrier. Someone said, Then quickly break this psychic barrier. Aren't you at level 7 psychokinesis? That psychic grandmaster's face turned even more serious. My psychic power is unable to break this barrier. Hearing this, the rest of the people felt a trace of despair in their hearts. According to the news they had just received, an expert had already killed his way to the Cheng family's courtyard. The head of the Cheng family, Cheng Cheng, and the ancestor of the Cheng family, Cheng Fan, had both been killed by that expert. One must know that the head of the family and the ancestor were both experts at the level of a hunter. That expert was able to kill the head of the family and the ancestor. He was definitely at the level of a hunter. In front of a desolate hunter, these desolate hunters and psychic grandmasters were like ants. At the same time, in the Cheng residence, without the two desolate master experts holding the fort, Mo Shi was like a child or an old friend. At the same time, with every punch, he would obtain at least 1 drop and at most 7 drops of colossal dragon blood. If those hunters had attacked Mo Shi together, Mo Shi would not have been able to defeat them with just his fists. However, those hunters had just seen Mo Shi's powerful mutant dire beast. At this moment, how could he still have the heart to fight? All they could do was flee. However, their speed was far inferior to Mo Shi's, and their strength was also far inferior to Mo Shi's. In the end, they were defeated by Mo Shi one by one. At this moment, there were 5 psychic grandmasters who saw how terrifying Mo Shi's strength was. They looked at each other and tried to use their telekinesis to stop Mo Shi. However, when their telekinesis spread out, they suddenly encountered a terrifying pressure. If they continued to spread out their telekinesis, each of them would explode and die. Therefore, they had to quickly retract their telekinesis to protect their bodies. Therefore, Mo Shi continued to punch a child or an old friend. To cut the weeds, one had to dig up the roots. Naturally, he would not leave any loose ends. Today, he came to kill all the Cheng family members. Some people might think that it was too cruel. On the other hand, if the Cheng family's strength was far beyond Mo Shi's, would they let anyone on Hunting Island No. 1 go? The Cheng family of Yuzhou was famous for this. It was not only because they were ranked 84th in Yuzhou. It was also because they were ruthless and decisive. If they had a grudge with any force, they would not leave anything behind. Therefore, even those forces ranked higher than the Cheng family did not dare to offend them. Thus, now that Mo Shi had the opportunity, he naturally had to eliminate them by the roots. Bang, puff, crack. Mo Shi's massacre continued. He still killed a child or an old friend with 1 punch. Although the visual impact was not as strong as killing in 1 move. However, for the Cheng family members, the psychological pressure was much greater. After all, they could only watch their own family members die one after another in front of them, and they could not even escape. Naturally, extreme fear arose in their hearts. After more than half an hour, Mo Shi had killed more than 3,000 people of the Cheng family, and only a little more than 1,000 people were left. The remaining people could not escape even if they wanted to, and all of them fell into deep despair. Just as Mo Shi was in the midst of his killing, 3 figures were flying quickly in the sky. The 3 figures were all dressed in white. On both sides were 2 young men. Their clothes were whiter than snow, and they looked elegant. In the middle was a woman. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind, and she looked like a fairy. They glanced down and saw the blood flowing like a river. The walls, the ground, the trees, and the grass were all stained with blood. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. Some of their heads exploded, and some had a big hole in their chests. Most of them had their bodies torn in half or broken into 2 halves. The fairy-like woman shook her head. Who could be so vicious? The man in white next to her pointed at Mo Shi, who had just caught up with a member of the Cheng family and punched his head. Saintess, it's him. The woman frowned slightly. She brought the 2 people and flew above Mo Shi's head. He said, You've killed enough. Stop it. Her voice was clear and distant, as if it came from the heavens. In fact, when the 3 of them entered Mo Shi's dragon wool barrier, Mo Shi had already detected them. The dragon wool barrier could be entered, but not exited. At this moment, Mo Shi punched again, and the head of a member of the Cheng family exploded. Only then did he look up at the 3 people in the sky. The blood dragon's eye scanned them. The two men on the left and right were both level 1 hunters. The woman in the middle was a level 10 psychic master. She was the strongest psychic master Mo had ever seen in his life. Mo said, "The three of you are," the man on the left said. "We are disciples of the White Lotus School of the Virgin. This is our candidate for saintess." Mo frowned slightly. The White Lotus School of the Virgin should be ranked 10th in the entire Yuzhou. It was said that they had 15 hunters on the surface. As for how many hunters were hidden, that was unknown. Their holy mother, the White Lotus, was a level 5 desolate hunter. However, this was not the main reason why they were ranked third. The main reason was that the White Lotus School of the Virgin was known for their medical skills. They could treat many cultivators' illnesses. Moreover, the entire White Lotus School of the Virgin was kind and helpful. They often helped other factions. Almost half of the factions in Yuzhou had received their help and owed them favors. If they encountered any difficulties, half of the factions in Yuzhou would come to help them. Chapter 299. The Holy Mother School of White Lotus ranked 10th in Yuzhou because of its benevolence and charity. Nearly half of the factions in Yuzhou owed them favors. The other half didn't owe them favors and didn't want to be enemies with them. After all, when people cultivated, they would often suffer from all kinds of cultivation illnesses. If they suffered from a difficult illness, they would have to ask the Holy Mother School of White Lotus for help. Thus, even the top 10 factions had good relations with the Holy Mother School of White Lotus. It could be said that offending the Holy Mother School of White Lotus was tantamount to offending all the factions in Yuzhou. If there was nothing else, Mo naturally wouldn't want to offend them. But now that he was in the middle of killing the Cheng clan, these three Holy Mother bitches suddenly came out to stop him. This was rather annoying. With this thought, he coldly said, "This is a matter between us. This is between me and the Cheng family. It has nothing to do with anyone else. In other words, they'd better not try anything funny." A white-robed man frowned. "When we see injustice on the road, we naturally have to intervene. Otherwise, we wouldn't be disciples of the Holy Mother School of White Lotus." Bang! Mo punched another Cheng clan clansman's head. "How do you know that this is injustice? Perhaps the Cheng clan killed my wife and took my son, so I have an irreconcilable grudge against them? The Cheng clan doesn't have the strength right now. If they did, they would have slaughtered their way to our homes and wiped out our entire clan. Our clan wasn't as lucky as the Cheng clan and didn't encounter you. Does that mean we deserve to be killed by them? The Cheng clan has always been domineering and despotic. Everyone in Yuzhou cursed them behind their backs. You didn't care about them. Now that I've wiped out the Cheng clan, I'm enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Yet you came to stop me. Are you going against the will of the heavens?" It was rare for Mo to say so much. Moreover, the moment he opened his mouth, he asked 3 questions in a row. In the sky, the 3 white-robed men glanced at each other. Finally, the woman spoke. "Even if you're right, killing so many people should be enough to vent your anger. So, let's stop." Mo sneered. "So if I stop now, when the Cheng family grows up in the future, do you think they will turn around and kill our family and annihilate our entire family? At that time, would they stop midway? When the time comes, will you appear again to stop them?" The woman pondered for a while and shook her head. "I can't guarantee that. Countless people in the great wide world were suffering. All I can do is to save the suffering in front of me." Mo couldn't help but laugh. "In other words, out of sight, out of mind. When I wanted to kill them for revenge, you saw it, so you wanted to save them. When the time comes, they will turn around and try to kill me. You can't see it, so I deserve to be killed?" The woman pondered for a moment and finally spoke again. "Anyway, you can't kill anyone today." Mo laughed again. "I've heard that the Holy Mother School of White Lotus has always been kind to others. I didn't expect you to be so unreasonable." Then he ignored them and leaped out. In the blink of an eye, he had traveled 1,000 meters. He caught up with a member of the Cheng family who was running away. Bang! With one punch, that person was blasted into a bloody mist. When the 2 men in white saw this, their sword-like eyebrows shot up. "Brat, do you not understand human language?" As he spoke, one of them leaped and directly attacked Mo from the air. Seeing this, Mo used the dragon shadow step again. He dodged the attack of the man in white. At the same time, his figure was already 5 kilometers away. With another punch, he killed a member of the Cheng family. The man in white was stunned. This brat was so fast. He quickly used his movement technique and instantly chased after Mo Shi. His movement technique was called the wind-chasing step. When used to the extreme, he could travel 10 kilometers in one step. Soon, he caught up to Mo Shi. Mo Shi saw that this guy was not slow either. He used the dragon shadow step again and traveled 20 kilometers in one step. The man in white frowned. This brat's movements were so fast? In the sky, the other man in white saw this and said, "The faster the movement technique, the more energy it consumes. Once his energy is exhausted, he won't be able to escape anymore. The two of us can surround him and catch up to him soon." After saying that, he also used another kind of footwork to encircle Mo Shi. However, he soon realized that he was gravely mistaken. Mo Shi's movements were so fast that the two of them despaired. At his fastest, he could travel 50 kilometers in one step. The two of them could not catch up to him. And the strangest thing was that such a fast movement technique must consume a lot of energy. However, this brat looked relaxed and did not seem to have any intention of exhausting his energy. The fairy-like saintess candidate in the sky was also frowning at this moment. "Senior brothers, let me lend you a helping hand." As she spoke, her level 10 telekinesis spread out. Soon, it enveloped Mo Shi. Although Mo Shi's dragon will was strong, it was only level 4, equivalent to the telekinesis of a level 8 telekinesis master. Under the cover of the girl's telekinesis, his movements were somewhat sluggish. Even if he used his energy, his speed was greatly reduced and could only reach 100 meters per second. At this time, the heart of the saintess candidate in the sky was in turmoil. If her level 10 telekinesis master's telekinesis was used, even a level 10 hunter would be imprisoned and unable to move. She could clearly feel that this brat was only a level 5 hunter. Under the imprisonment of her telekinesis, he could still reach a speed of 100 meters per second. This brat's strength was too terrifying, wasn't it? No, it was impossible for him to have such terrifying strength. Could it be that he had some kind of magic treasure? At this time, the two men in white also had the same thought in their hearts. Thinking of this, the three of them looked at each other. There was a hint of greed in their eyes. Their school of White Lotus had many magic treasures, so under normal circumstances, in the eyes of outsiders, the disciples of the school of White Lotus were not greedy at all. However, if they encountered some rare treasures, they would be tempted. It was just that under normal circumstances, they hid it very well so outsiders did not know about it at all. But at this time, seeing a level 5 hunter who could use his strength to resist the telekinesis of a level 10 telekinesis master, how could they not be tempted by such a treasure? When the three of them looked at each other, they used the brainwave communicator to communicate. "This brat must have some kind of powerful treasure on him." "I think so too. He's just a level 5 hunter. We can easily kill him." "What if someone else finds out?" "Easy. We can say that he didn't listen to our advice. After talking to so many people, he still wanted to attack us. We have no choice but to kill him. It can be considered as upholding justice for the heavens." "Well, okay. I think it's okay." The three of them had decided, and the way they looked at Mo Shi changed. Chapter 300. The brainwave communicator was the latest high-tech product from the Flaming Continent. It had just been invented not long ago, and only a few large factions had it. Wearing the brainwave communicator allowed one to communicate directly with their consciousness. There was no need for words or body movements. At this moment, the three fairy-like disciples of the Holy Mother of White Lotus had come to a decision. The way the three of them looked at Mo Shi instantly changed. One of the white-clothed men pointed at Mo Shi. "Kid, you've killed so many people. We wanted to persuade you to repent, but we didn't expect you to want to kill us too. You're crazy." Mo Shi's face was filled with question marks. "When did I say I wanted to kill you? If I really wanted to kill you, you would have been dead long ago. How would I have the chance to talk here?" The other white-clothed man also shouted. "You insulted our White Lotus Saintess candidate and insulted our Holy Mother of White Lotus. If we don't kill you today, where will the White Lotus Society's face go?" Mo Shi's face was full of questions again. I just argued with her. That's not arrogant, right? Furthermore, insulting the Holy Mother's school of White Lotus was too outrageous. Even if I wanted to, I would only insult the Holy Mother and the Saintess. I don't have the ability to insult your entire Holy Mother of White Lotus. The fairy-like Saintess candidate also pointed at Mo Shi at this moment. The three of us will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens today. As she spoke, her telekinesis enveloped Mo Shi with all her might. Mo Shi's speed immediately dropped by a notch. He could only reach 50 meters per second. The other two white-clothed men condensed their genetic weapons at the same time. A knife and a sword slashed at Mo Shi. At this time, how could Mo Shi not know what they were planning? From their greedy eyes, he knew that they had taken a liking to something on him and wanted to kill him and steal it. He took a look at their memories and found that it was indeed so. Mo Shi didn't want to have a grudge with the Holy Mother of White Lotus. But now that they had such an idea, he was sorry. Want to kill him and steal his treasure? Let's see who will kill who and who will steal whose treasures. Thinking of this, Mo Shi's cold eyes flashed with killing intent. With a thought, the sea dragon clone appeared in an instant. In the next moment, the sea dragon clone suddenly pounced from the side like a cheetah. Like a hunting dog pouncing on a rabbit that had jumped into the air, he intercepted a man in white in the air. Crack! A sound that made one's scalp go numb was heard. The man in white was bitten into two and swallowed. Then, the sea dragon clone pounced on another man in white. When the white-clothed man saw this, his expression immediately changed. To be able to swallow a level 1 desolate hunter in one gulp. How strong was this monster? He didn't dare to hesitate at all. He turned around and fled. In the sky, the Saintess candidate's face turned pale with fright. She never expected that a mutated desolate beast would jump out of nowhere and devour one of her senior brothers. Such a mutated desolate beast was not something they could handle. Thinking of this, she hurriedly stepped on her hoverboard shoes, turned around, and was about to fly away. However, it was too late. The sea dragon clone leaped, and this pounce covered a distance of 3,000 meters. It directly swallowed the Saintess candidate into its mouth. The rest of the men in white had already fled 5 kilometers away. But the sea dragon clone opened its huge mouth and let out a sharp, ear-piercing cry. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The man in white suddenly felt a sweetness in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell from the sky. Mo Shi controlled the sea dragon clone and leaped again. It intercepted the man in white in the air. Then it opened its mouth and swallowed the man in white into its stomach. At this point, the 3 people from the Holy Mother School of White Lotus had all died tragically in the sea dragon clone's stomach. Mo Shi's consciousness returned to his main body. At the same time, the sea dragon clone opened its huge mouth and spat out a few items. 3 brainwave communicators. A token. A fist-sized stone. The brainwave communicators could be used by his subordinates in the base. The token was made of jade. There was a woman carved on it, and below was a white lotus. Obviously, this was the token of the Holy Mother School of White Lotus. From the memories of the 3 people, Mo Shi already knew that only disciples with extremely high status in the School of White Lotus could have such a token. As long as one had such a token, it was equivalent to the White Lotus School's leader coming in person. Carrying such a token was not only useful in the School of White Lotus, but also in other factions. If one carried such a token, the other factions would not be in a hurry to look at them differently and would help them as much as possible. Of course, such a token had a genetic imprint on it. Only the original owner could activate the imprint on the token to distinguish its authenticity. However, Mo Shi had the sign-in system. With his understanding of the system, he should be able to sign in a token that he could use. As for the last stone, it was completely translucent and contained a huge amount of energy. Mo Shi knew from the memories of the Saintess candidate that this was the teleportation stone of the ancient dragon battlefield. Previously, Mo Shi only knew that one could enter the ancient dragon battlefield after becoming a desolate hunter. In fact, there was another restriction, which was the teleportation stone of the ancient battlefield. It was said that in the beginning, if one wanted to go to the ancient dragon battlefield, one had to become a Grand Desolate Master. A senior mighty figure was the first Grand Desolate Master to return safely from the ancient dragon battlefield. After he returned, based on the situation in the ancient dragon battlefield, He realized that desolate hunters could also go there to train. However, there was a seal restriction, so desolate hunters could not enter at all. Therefore, he spent a lot of effort to create many teleportation stones. Desolate hunters could use these teleportation stones to enter the ancient dragon battlefield. Now that many years had passed, there were not many teleportation stones left. Each one had a sky-high price. He did not expect the three of them to come over and give him one. Putting away the other two items, Mo sure said in his mind, "System, special event sign-in." The system's voice immediately sounded frowny face sign-in successful. Sign-in event. Killed the Saintess candidate of the White Lotus School of White Lotus. Sign-in reward. Token of the White Lotus School of White Lotus X1. When Mo sure heard this notification, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. It was indeed this reward. Now that he had figured out the system's rewards, he could do some special events to obtain rewards if he wanted something in the future. Following that, Mo sure continued to use his fists to kill the Chang family members. Speaking of which, the efficiency of using fists to kill people was really too low. Mo sure spent more than 5 hours until the sky turned dark before he slaughtered everyone in the Chang family. Thus, he obtained millions of drops of dragon blood. At this time, it was already late. Mo sure first searched the Chang family. He stored all the useful things in his personal warehouse. He also took all the cash. Then, he used the dragon shadow step to travel several kilometers away before stopping. Chapter 301. Mo sure was thousands of kilometers away from the Chang family until he reached the beach by the sea. Only then did he stop. After probing with his dragon consciousness, he found that there was no one here. He took out the dragon cave and entered it. However, he had just experienced a massacre and should have needed to rest. However, Mo sure did not rest after entering the dragon cave. Instead, he took out the Titan dragon blood he had just obtained and began to consume it. It would take a lot of time to consume hundreds of thousands of drops of Titan dragon blood. After consuming dozens of drops, he felt that the energy in his body had increased a lot. According to his calculations, after consuming this blood, even if he could not become a level 6 hunter, he should not be far from it. In fact, it took Mo sure 27 hours to consume the blood this time. While he was consuming the blood, a piece of news quickly spread throughout Yuzhou. In a restaurant in a small town. Have you heard that the Cheng family of Yuzhou was wiped out overnight? F***ck, are you kidding me? Are you sure it's the Cheng family of Yuzhou? The Cheng family that is ranked 84th? I passed by the Cheng family of Yuzhou this morning and saw it with my own eyes. How can it be fake? Really? Tell us. At that time the sun hadn't come out yet. It was just dawn. When I passed by the town where the Cheng family was located, I saw a layer of fog everywhere. When I took a closer look, guess what? The rest of the people widened their eyes and asked, "What?" The man lowered his voice and whispered, "That's right. That mist is actually blood red." Everyone's face turned cold. They didn't even dare to breathe. The man continued. I mustered up my courage and came to the Chang family town. I saw that the town was full of dead people. Some had lost their arms and legs, and some had a big hole in their chest. Some even lost their heads. There was blood everywhere. It was just like hell. I was so scared that I wet my pants. In order to prove that what he said was true, the man even lifted his crotch. If you don't believe me, come and smell it. There's also the smell of urine. Everyone waved their hands and cursed. F***ck, who the F***ck is crazy to smell your crotch? The man chuckled and then stopped smiling. He spoke as if he was telling a ghost story. Last time when I saw the tragic state of Xianxia town, I was so scared that I peed my pants. At that time, his legs were definitely ice cold, as if he had sat down in a bucket of cold water. After regaining my senses, I scrambled out of Xianxia town. Unexpectedly, not only Xianxia town, but also dozens of kilometers away from Xianxia town, there was not a single living person. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts when they heard this. To be able to annihilate the entire Cheng clan, that would definitely be an intense battle. The man shook his head and said, "That's right. According to my many years of experience, there were no signs of a fight at all. Basically, Those people from the Cheng family were all killed in one move. Therefore, this is a one-sided massacre. Everyone looked at each other. Since they can slaughter the Cheng family, which is ranked 84th in Yuzhou, there must be a lot of people on the other side, and each of them is definitely not weak. Let's keep our voices down. Those people might be around us right now. Isn't it mealtime? They need to eat too, don't they? When the others heard this, they were shocked. They hurriedly lowered their heads and stopped talking. While eating, they secretly glanced around from time to time. They seemed to be afraid that those people who slaughtered the Cheng family would appear. If they knew that it was not a force that slaughtered the Cheng family, but only one person, what would they think? However, most of the civilians were overjoyed that the Cheng family of Yuzhou was annihilated. Ever since the Cheng family of Yuzhou became one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou, they had done a lot of evil over the years. Now, someone finally acted on behalf of the heavens and destroyed them. The heavens really opened their eyes. In particular, some of the civilians who were harmed by the Cheng family of Yuzhou were already secretly grateful to the force that destroyed the Cheng family of Yuzhou. In a small mountain village in Yuzhou, a 17 or 18-year-old boy was kneeling in the courtyard at this time. He kowtowed 3 times in a row. He said loudly, "Heavens, you've opened your eyes. Benefactor, thank you for annihilating the Cheng family and killing Cheng Peng, the beast who took my sister by force. I hope you bless your benefactor and let him live a long life without any disasters in his life." On the Sisui River in Yuzhou, a middle-aged man kowtowed 3 times to the river. The Cheng family of Yuzhou is finally annihilated. The Su family's revenge is finally avenged. I don't know which benefactor annihilated the Su family. I only hope that I can find my benefactor in this life and repay his great kindness. At the same time, the major forces in Yuzhou also held an emergency meeting. In a big wooden house in the corpse-running village, which ranked first, there were more than a dozen bony corpse drivers. The leader of the group was none other than their village chief. After a while, he slowly opened his mouth. His voice was like the creaking of a wooden door when it was turned. "What do you think of the Cheng family being annihilated?" The corpse drivers around him pondered for a long time. Then someone spoke. His voice was like the creaking of a wooden door when it was turned. "Good job." Another one also made the creaking sound of a wooden door when it was turned. "Our position as the first in the corpse-running village is more stable now." The third corpse driver also made the creaking sound of a wooden door when it was turned. If this kind of thing happens a few more times, our corpse-running village will be the most powerful one. The village head pondered for a long time. Then he said with the sound of a wooden door turning, "Pay attention to the other forces and see who did it." The Franklin Academy ranked 85th. In the meeting room, the dean said to the teachers, "What do you think about the annihilation of the Cheng family?" A female teacher in her 50s pushed up her glasses and had a charming smile on her face. "The annihilation of the Cheng family means that our Franklin Academy will be 84th. It's a good thing." The other teachers also nodded. Yes, it's indeed a good thing. The Cheng family of Yuzhou was unpopular in the first place. There's nothing to say about their annihilation. I don't know which force did what I always wanted to do but didn't have the ability to do. The dean glared at the teacher and then said, "Although this matter is important, it has nothing to do with us. As you said, it will at most raise our Franklin Academy's ranking by 1 place. The next focus should be on the martial arts tournament that will be held soon." An older teacher next to him reminded him. "Dean, although it has nothing to do with us, we should still be careful and find out which force did it." The dean nodded and said to one of the male teachers, "Fully activate our intelligence network. We must find out who did it. However, don't alert the enemy. If that force is alerted, it will become a new problem." Chapter 302. Almost all the forces in Yuzhou were discussing the destruction of the Cheng family. The results of the discussion were surprisingly consistent. It had nothing to do with them. At the same time, they had to pay attention to the force that destroyed the Cheng family. Only the White Lotus School, which was ranked 10th, had some changes. On the sacred mountain of the White Lotus School, there was a mountain that was shaped like a lotus and covered in snow all year round. It was the White Lotus Peak. On the White Lotus Peak, in the White Lotus Cave, in the open space below the high platform, There were a group of high-ranking members of the White Lotus sect, the 12 protectors and the 108 branch leaders. They were all dressed in white. On the high platform, the White Lotus sect's Holy Mother was sitting cross-legged on a White Lotus platform. The White Lotus sect's Holy Mother was dressed in white and looked very beautiful. Although she was over 100 years old, she had a lifespan of 200 years because she had taken good care of herself and was a desolate hunter. Therefore, she looked like she was in her 40s. She looked dignified, elegant, and kind, making people feel close to her. She was like Guanyin descending to the mortal world. She opened her mouth and asked the people below, "What do you think about the destruction of the Cheng family?" Her voice lingered in the air, making those who heard it happy. A branch leader said, "Although the Cheng family of Yuzhou was unjust, they deserved to die. However, not everyone was guilty of the most heinous crimes. It's not right to kill tens of thousands of people in one night." The other sect leader sighed and nodded, saying, "That's right." "Yes. How many women and children were killed? What did they do wrong?" Sigh. Everyone had a compassionate look on their faces. The White Lotus sect's Holy Mother also nodded. "Sigh, if the disciples of our sect were present at that time, this disaster would not have happened. However, there are many people in the world who are suffering. We can't save everyone. As long as I do my best to save the people in front of me, I will be merciful." Then, the White Lotus sect's Holy Mother changed the topic. "We are going to choose a saintess from our sect. Are all the candidates that I asked the subcult masters to recommend here?" Everyone arrived. "The saintess candidate of our first branch is here. The saintess candidate of our second branch is here too. The saintess of our 108th branch is here too." After everyone finished reporting, only the patriarch of the 58th branch frowned slightly. "Holy Mother, we've lost contact with our 58th branch's saintess candidate." Holy Mother White Lotus asked, "What happened?" The patriarch of the 58th branch replied, "I'm not sure yet. The 2 disciples I sent to pick up the saintess candidates have also lost contact. I've already sent someone to look for him." Holy Mother White Lotus nodded. "If there is news, report it immediately." The 58th sect leader replied, "Yes, sect master." 2 days later during the court meeting, Holy Mother White Lotus asked the 58th sect leader again, "Have you found the saintess candidate?" The 58th sect's leader had an ugly expression on his face. Reporting to the Holy Mother, "We did not find it. However, there were already some clues. The saintess candidate and my 2 disciples went missing when they were passing by Xianxia town." The Holy Mother pondered for a moment. "So, it's very likely to be related to the extermination of the Cheng family?" The leader of the 58 branches nodded. "There should be a connection. However, the disciples of our cult are good at medical skills, not solving cases. So I've already contacted the detective company to investigate. We saved the son of the chairman of the detective company before, and he said that he would do his best to find out the truth." The Holy Mother White Lotus nodded. "That's good. However, the day of the saintess selection is approaching. We must choose the saintess before the martial arts tournament, so that we can show the glory of our Holy Mother White Lotus during the martial arts tournament. You have to hurry up. If you still can't find your saintess candidate before the day of the selection, you will have forfeited." The 58th sect's leader cupped his fists. "Yes, Holy Mother." At the same time, Mo Shi had already absorbed all the Titan dragon blood. He could feel that he was not far from being promoted to a level 6 hunter. If he went back to the virtual dragon palace to sign in, he would be able to successfully advance to level 6 in 3 months at most. However, Mo Shi had already seen tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of drops of dragon blood in one night. Naturally, he was not interested in the 8 drops of blood in the virtual dragon palace every night. And this time, he had to go to various places to sign in. Naturally, it was impossible for him to go back so soon. It was said that the place where mechas were produced in Yuzhou was controlled by the military. It was called Steel City. Mo Shi planned to go to Steel City now. After traveling for half a day, he passed by a blood-red area. Mo Shi remembered that this was the place where he had planted the Zero virus last time. The Zero virus had now infected an area with a radius of more than 500 kilometers. And it was still expanding. The Zero virus was different from any virus that existed on the continent. Those people used various methods to try to eliminate the Zero virus, But in the end, they returned without success. In the end, it was a grand desolate master who had lived in seclusion in Yuzhou for a long time who used his tyrannical energy to forcefully kill most of the infected creatures. This alleviated the disaster, although the entire disaster area was still slowly expanding. But the overly powerful infected creatures inside had already been destroyed. Moreover, the zero virus inside had been through the hands of the Grand Desolate Master, so its infectivity had decreased a lot. Therefore, they were now treating the disaster area as a training ground. Every day, many cultivators who wanted to become stronger would enter the disaster area to train. When Mo Shi flew over the sky, he investigated the situation of the disaster area. He found that this place was almost under control. This allowed him to have a deeper understanding of the Grand Desolate Master. The system had said that there was no way to control the zero virus in the flaming continent. But a Grand Desolate Master had controlled it with his own strength. This showed how terrifying the strength of a Grand Desolate Master was. However, Mo Shi was still a little unconvinced. System, didn't you say that the zero virus was invincible in the flaming continent? The system's voice replied, frowny face, in theory, it is true, but only when you place the zero virus on a creature whose strength is at least at the level of a desolate master will the power erupt is the strongest. Mo Shi was a little speechless. Damn, why didn't you say so earlier? The system continued, frowny face, perhaps one day, when you sign in to the zero virus version 2.0 in a laboratory, its power will be even stronger. Even a Grand Desolate Master can't solve it. Mo Shi nodded. All right, the final explanation belongs to the system anyway. Whatever you say makes sense. Ignoring the humans who were training below, Mo Shi used the blood dragon wings to quickly fly over the disaster area. After flying for another half a day, he finally saw a towering city standing on the plains in the distance. Steel City. Chapter 303. Under the blue sky, on a boundless green plain, there was a city of steel. There was not a single piece of concrete or stone in the city. All the buildings and facilities were made of steel. This was the mecha production base of the Yuzhou military. Steel City. If one were to ask which place in Yuzhou was the most heavily guarded, without a doubt, it was Steel City. Steel City was guarded by powerful cultivators sent by the military. It was said that Steel City had tens of thousands of hunters. There were more than 150 hunters. There was only one Grand Desolate Master. There were also several hundred mechas. And this was only the strength on the surface. No one knew just how much strength they were hiding. In short, although the Yuzhou military was not in the top 100 factions, their strength could easily crush any faction. In the past, Mo Shi would never have come to Steel City. But today was different. When he was still 100 kilometers away from Steel City, Mo Shi activated his camouflage skill. This was to prevent powerful psychic grandmasters from detecting him. At the same time, he put away his multifunctional watch and other electronic devices to prevent them from being detected by the electronic detection equipment in Steel City. He lay on the grass for about an hour. The sun was already setting in the west. Only then did Mo Shi quietly set off towards Steel City. Mo Shi was not very fast. Although he could camouflage and conceal himself, no detection equipment or spiritual detection could detect him. But who knew if there was some sort of invisible defensive measure here? When Mo Shi was 10 kilometers away from Steel City's walls, his dragon sense detected an invisible barrier not far in front of him. This invisible barrier was not made of spiritual energy. It seemed to be some sort of energy-type defensive weapon. With Mo Shi's current police force, he would not be able to pass through it using normal methods. But this was not a problem for him. He activated the Great Success Dragon Shadow Step. The Great Success Dragon Shadow Step was not movement, but teleportation. It could be used to pass through walls. Of course, the Great Success Dragon Shadow Step did not require him to teleport 100 kilometers. The teleportation distance could be controlled by Mo Shi. Mo Shi teleported a kilometer forward and passed through the invisible wall. The rest of the journey was smooth. They came to the edge of the wall. Beside the wall, in addition to various electronic monitoring and detection devices, there were also some psychic grandmasters and desolate hunters. However, with Mo Shi's camouflage skill, it was impossible for these telekinesis grandmasters and desolate hunters to discover Mo Shi. Then, with another teleportation, he leaped over the steel wall. At this moment, the dragon will covered the entire steel city. The city of steel was a huge square with sides over 10 kilometers long. The square was divided into many smaller squares by many workshops. According to M.O. Sher's investigation, some of these factories were responsible for producing the core chips of the mechs. Some produced weapon systems. Some produced hydrogen batteries. Some produced circuit components. Some were responsible for the final assembly. M.O. Sher was secretly delighted. If he signed here, he should be able to obtain quite a number of mechas. Thinking of this, he signed in his mind. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City. Sign in reward, 1 giant eagle mecha. M.O. Sher frowned slightly. He only got 1 mecha after signing in. System, do you have to be so stingy? What I want is an army of mechas, not 1 or 2 mechas. However, the system didn't answer. M.O. Sher was helpless. This opportunity to sign in was wasted. It seemed that he could only wait until after midnight to sign in again. Of course, when he signed in again, it wouldn't be here. After thinking about it, M.O. Sher concluded that the reason why he only signed in 1 mecha just now should be because he signed in at the wrong location. According to the detection of the dragon will, he quietly sneaked towards the assembly workshop. Thinking about it, he should be able to sign in a lot of mechas there. After all, there were many finished mechas there. And there were many types and models. There was the Falcon 730 mecha, the Cheetah G50 mecha, and the Little Bird A8 reconnaissance mecha. As long as it was a mecha used by the military, the corresponding type and model could be found here. The ground of this steel city was also made of steel. If he walked normally, his feet would make clanking sounds when he stepped on it. But for cultivators, it wasn't difficult to move forward silently. 5 minutes later, M.O. Sher sneaked to the outside of the assembly workshop. According to the previous practice, signing in outside the workshop would give him some rewards related to the things in the workshop. But this opportunity to sign in didn't come easily. For the sake of insurance, M.O. Sher decided to enter the workshop. The workshop was still working at this time. M.O. Sher climbed on an unmanned trailer, disguised as a box on the trailer, and entered the workshop. Then he disguised himself in a pile of mechas in the corner. He waited quietly until it was past midnight. M.O. Sher said in his mind again, System, sign in. The system's voice suddenly sounded in his mind, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City Assembly Workshop. Sign in reward, a full set of equipment in the assembly workshop. When M.O. Sher heard this reward, a smile finally appeared on his face. So that's how it is. The system wasn't too stingy. It planned to reward him with an entire mecha factory. As the saying goes, it's better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. If the system only rewarded him with 10, 100, or 1,000 mechas, then if the mechas were damaged or malfunctioned in battle, they could only be abandoned. In the future, if he wants to replenish mechas, he can only spend evolution points to sign in. And it can be imagined that if he wants to sign in a large number of mechas, it will inevitably consume a lot of evolution points. On the contrary, if he has a mecha factory, that way they would be able to produce an endless stream of mechas. It's just that he can only sign in 1 factory in 1 night. If he wants to sign in the entire mecha factory, it will probably take about a month. But there is nothing to hesitate about. After a month, he will have the entire mecha factory. What else is there to say? After signing in, M.O. Sher entered his dragon cave to rest. The next night, after midnight, M.O. Sher appeared again. This time, he quietly sneaked into the chip production workshop. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City Chip Production Workshop. Sign in reward, a full set of equipment in the chip production workshop. On the 3rd night, M.O. Sher sneaked into the power system workshop. System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Steel City Power System Workshop. Sign in reward, a full set of equipment in the power system workshop. Chapter 304. Steel City was the most heavily guarded place in Yuzhou. In the 200 years since its establishment, no one had been able to sneak in. Everyone who tried to sneak in ended up with miserable fates. However, Mo Shi's camouflage skill was heaven-defying. Not only could he avoid all electronic equipment and all kinds of light detection, he could also avoid the detection of psychic grandmasters. Thus, Mo Shi had been signing in here for 5 days without anyone noticing. Moreover, he only appeared for a short while every day when he was signing in. The rest of the time, he was hiding in the Dragon Cave. The Dragon Cave was equivalent to a space independent of this world. After he entered the Dragon Cave, all his aura completely disappeared. Those detection equipment and cultivators were even more unable to detect Mo Shi's existence. And in these 5 days, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters in Steel City kept feeling that something was wrong. It was just a very faint feeling. It was like when you returned home and someone sneaked in. Although you couldn't see it, you could always feel that something was wrong. However, when the 3 Grand Desolate Masters carefully investigated, they couldn't find anything. Finally, after 5 days, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters finally met. One of them asked, "Have you guys felt that something was strange recently?" The other 2 nodded. "You also have this feeling?" "In short, I just feel that something is strange. As for what is strange, I can't say. It's just a kind of feeling." The other 2 nodded. "Yes, we also have this feeling. It's a feeling we've never had before." After a moment of silence, one of the Grand Desolate Masters said, "Why don't we organize people to conduct a carpet search of the entire city?" The other 2 pondered for a moment before nodding. "Yes, I think that's fine. Okay." Thus, on the 6th day, Steel City organized more than 3,000 people and more than 1,000 reconnaissance mechas. With all kinds of high-tech equipment, they spent more than 5 hours conducting a comprehensive and meticulous search of the entire Steel City without leaving any blind spots. However, the result was that they didn't find anything. After the search, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters met again. "You didn't find anything?" "Yes." "Strange. Where is that strange feeling coming from?" After discussing for a while, they still couldn't come to a conclusion. In the end, the 3 of them could only remind each other to be careful for the time being. For the next half a month, it was still peaceful. Although the 3 of them still felt strange every day, Mo Shi's camouflage skill was simply too heaven-defying. No matter how they scanned, probed or searched, they were unable to discover Mo Shi's existence. In the end, after more than 40 days, Mo Shi finally signed in a full set of mecha factories. After that, he returned to Hunting Island 1. With a single move of his dragon will, all the infected creatures within a square area of 10 kilometers were wiped out. Then, with a thought, he took out a full set of equipment from the assembly workshop. He had originally thought that the entire set of equipment was just equipment and not a factory. However, he did not expect that when he took out the full set of equipment, it also came with a brand new factory. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw a factory building appear out of thin air in the open space. When they entered the factory, they saw that all the equipment needed to assemble a mech was available. Everyone was shocked and started to discuss. "Mr. Mo is getting stronger and stronger. He can even make factories and all the equipment appear out of thin air. Is this what it means to be a god? Mr. Mo is really beyond our imagination. What do you guys think this equipment is used for? Who knows? In short, Mr. Mo's intentions are not something we can speculate about." Mo Shi took a closer look at the factory building. He found that not only was all the equipment produced by the system brand new, but every set of equipment was much more advanced than the equipment in Steel City. In Steel City's factory building, smart equipment only accounted for 50%. And in the factory building produced by the system, smart equipment accounted for about 70%. This not only greatly reduced the labor force, but also reduced the difficulty of operating a lot of equipment. Next, Mo Shi took out all the factories. Therefore, a city that looked exactly the same as Steel City appeared on Hunting Island number 1. Although it was a replica of Steel City, it was definitely an upgraded version of Steel City. Next, Mo Shi took out 5 large packages of manuals from his backpack. He said to Gua Jutao, "Here are the manuals for all the equipment." Gua Jutao opened one of the packages and took out a manual. After reading it for a moment, his eyes widened and he asked in disbelief, "Mr. Mo, these are mecha factories?" Mo Shi nodded. "Yes." Everyone was pleasantly surprised when they heard this. "Wow, an entire mecha factory. Then we can make tens of thousands of mechas in the future, right?" That's awesome. I really don't know how Mr. M.O. got an entire mecha factory. M.O. sure asked Guo Jutao next to him. How long can the super batteries we stored last if we use them for the entire mecha factory? Guo Jutao looked at the 30 or so huge factories and said, if it's all for the use of these equipment, I estimate that it can last for 1 to 3 months. However, we have more than 20 mechas now. We can send them to catch other infected creatures and use them to make super batteries. M.O. sure nodded in satisfaction when he heard this. Yes, not bad. I'm going out for a while. During this time, you guys just need to develop steadily. Don't be greedy. Guo Jutao replied. Yes, Mr. M.O. The reason why M.O. sure wanted to go out was because he planned to go to the martial arts tournament. He didn't care about the rankings. What he cared about the most was the rewards of the martial arts tournament. According to the information obtained from the memory of the Saintess candidate of the White Lotus Society, the rewards of this martial arts tournament were very generous. In addition to a large amount of money and weapons, there were 2 more important things. It was also an incomplete dragon vein. The other was a map of the ancient battlefield of the great dragons. If he could obtain the map of the ancient battlefield of the great dragons, his safety in the ancient battlefield of the great dragons would be greatly improved. As for the broken dragon vein, it was said that a senior mighty person brought it back from the ancient battlefield of the great dragons 1,000 years ago. It contained a huge amount of energy. According to that senior, as long as one understood the secrets of the dragon vein or repaired the broken dragon vein, one would be able to obtain unimaginable benefits. Chapter 305. Whoever could comprehend the mystery of the incomplete dragon vein or make up for the incomplete dragon vein would be able to obtain a great opportunity. However, that senior spent 500 years and still couldn't figure out the mystery. Now that another 500 years had passed, the senior's descendants couldn't figure out the mystery either. Therefore, they took out the incomplete dragon vein. The dragon vein would belong to whoever could unravel the mystery behind it. As long as the person who figured out the mystery could take care of the senior's descendants in the future. This was also the senior's last words 500 years ago. Now, the senior's descendants' family was in decline. According to the senior's last words, they contributed the incomplete dragon vein as a reward for this martial arts tournament. An incomplete dragon vein and a map of the ancient dragon battlefield. M.O. sure was determined to get this. According to past practice, the participants of the martial arts tournament must be the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. Moreover, there must be a desolate hunter among the forces. The first hunting island couldn't even be ranked in the top 100 of Yuzhou. But now, M.O. sure had absolute confidence. Even without the sea dragon avatar, the strength of their first hunting island could definitely crush many of the top 100 forces. However, M.O. sure still felt that he couldn't be too careless. Therefore, he called the Night King over. He asked, "How is the growth of the Night Ghost Spirit Seeds?" The Night King replied, "Those 10 Night Ghost Spirit Seeds are about to mature. I estimate that they will be harvested in half a month at the latest." M.O. sure nodded in satisfaction. The martial arts tournament was held more than 20 days later. The timing was just right. Therefore, M.O. sure stayed on the first hunting island for a few more days. During these days, he didn't do anything else. The only thing he did was to spend tens of billions of evolution points to sign in the Night Ghost Spirit Seeds. In half a month, he signed in 150 Night Ghost Spirit Seeds. Then, he asked the Night King to transform some infected creatures into night ghosts and plant the Night Ghost Spirit Seeds in their bodies. On the 15th day, the 10 Night Ghost Spirits had all matured. The Night King opened the corpses of the 10 Night Ghosts and took out the Night Ghost Spirits. M.O. sure had already asked Guo Jutao to choose 10 people with extremely poor talent who had no hope of becoming a desolate hunter in their lives. Help them consume the Night Ghost Spirit. 3 days later, all 10 of them had been promoted from mere corpse hunters to desolate hunters. This caused the other people who had been working hard to cultivate to be extremely envious. Who would be willing to train so hard if they could become a hunter in one step? However, when M.O. sure told them that if they consumed the Night Ghost Spirit, they would not be able to advance any further. One by one, they retreated. However, with these 10 people in the base, it was equivalent to having a total of 12 desolate hunters in the base. With so many high-end battle forces, number 1 hunting island could be ranked in the top 50 among all the forces in Yuzhou province. If all the mechas on the first hunting island were included, it would be no problem for them to rank in the top 30. However, Mo Shi did not plan to reveal his mecha when he went to the martial arts tournament. 2 days later, Mo Shi waited for the newly promoted desolate hunters to stabilize their cultivation, before leading them to the location of the martial battle assembly. The martial arts competition was held at Nether Mountain in Yuzhou. The Netherworld Mountain sounded like a very ominous place. In fact, it was indeed a very ominous place. The Netherworld Mountain was shrouded in miasma all year round. Being able to enter the Netherworld Mountain was enough to show that this force was very strong. The reason why the martial arts tournament was set up here was to isolate those idle people who came to watch the show from the outside. After all, there were 100 forces. Even if each force only sent 100 disciples, there would be tens of thousands of people. If those who came to watch the fun were added, wouldn't it be a mess? Moreover, the reward this time was very important. Naturally, it was impossible to let those who were not involved watch. Mo Shi did not bring many people to the Netherworld Mountain this time. Guo Jutao stayed at the base to guard it. Mo Shi brought the remaining 11 desolate hunters, Emma, her daughter, Happy, and the little monk. Happy had awakened the ability of a prophet. Although on the surface, she did not look like an ordinary person at all. In fact, her physique had far surpassed that of an ordinary person. She could totally deal with the miasma. As a member of the Blood Clan, Emma's physique was far stronger than that of an ordinary desolate hunter. There was no problem for her to deal with the miasma. As for Emma's son, with Mo Shi's recovery potion in his body, he would be fine. The group flew across the sea and arrived at a city near the sea. Then, through the teleportation device, they were teleported to Luo City, which was more than 300 kilometers away from the Netherworld Mountain. They planned to rest here for the night and head to the Netherworld Mountain tomorrow. Luo City could be considered a city that was neither big nor small. Although it was not the most bustling city in Yuzhou, it was quite unique. That afternoon, Mo Shi planned to take Happy out for a walk. After all, Happy had been in the flaming beginning continent for so long and had never come out. Emma also followed with her son. She hoped that her son could see more of the outside world. Perhaps this could stimulate her son's brain and let him recover sooner. As for the other desolate hunters and the little monk, they did not come out. Guo Jutao had told them before that when they came out with Mr. Mo this time, everything else was secondary and should be put aside first. They would talk about other things after Mr. Mo obtained a good ranking. Not long after, Mo Shi, Happy, and Emma came to the street. It was evening. The strange neon lights on the street were already flashing. There were many 3D advertisements that were dazzling to the eyes. On the street, maglev cars could occasionally be seen. In the flaming beginning continent, maglev technology and autopilot technology had long been mature. Some older people would take maglev cars when they went out. Happy had only seen this in recorded videos before. It was the first time he saw it with his own eyes. She stared with her big eyes, like a curious baby looking at this grotesque and variegated world that was full of novelty. She grabbed Mo Shi's arm tightly and seemed a little nervous. But she could not help but be curious and kept looking around. Although Emma was not as curious as Happy, it was still the first time she had seen it. Her eyes were also constantly looking around. When the four of them passed through the street, many people turned to look at them. Of course, those people's target was not Mo Shi and Emma's son. It was Emma and Happy. They were too good-looking. Those men were secretly guessing in their hearts. What's the relationship between this kid and those two women? In the end, they all came to a conclusion in their hearts. 2 good cabbages were taken by a pig, and he even took out a small cabbage. F***ck. Mo Shi felt the malicious gazes of the crowd and straightened his body with a smile. He stretched out his right hand and hugged Happy's waist. I like it when you don't like me but can't do anything to me. Chapter 306. Mo Shi brought Happy, Emma, and her son to continue shopping. When they saw some beautiful clothes in some shops, Mo Shi pointed at them and asked Happy, "Do you like them?" Although Happy was not a materialistic girl, they had been together for so long, and he had not bought her a single piece of clothing. It was too unreasonable. Although the style of clothes in Flaming Beginning was different from that on Earth, there were also clothes that were similar to ancient costumes. They were all very exquisite. Happy's gaze swept past the ancient clothes, and a hint of surprise appeared in her eyes. But then she shook her head. Emo sure was puzzled. You don't like them? Then let's go to another shop. Soon, they came to another clothing shop. This one was bigger than the previous one, and there were more styles of clothes. Emo sure said, see if there's anything you like. Happy still shook her head. Emo sure was puzzled. He felt that many of the clothes here were very beautiful. Was Happy's taste so high? Emma, who was beside him, answered his question. She's afraid that you'll spend money and doesn't want to give you any trouble. Emo sure came to a realization and immediately said to Happy, Happy, choose. Don't worry. I'm not short of money now. Emma dragged Happy along and went to try on the clothes. She tried on the clothes for half an hour. Half an hour later, Emma came out with two of the clothes with Happy. One was like an ancient costume, and the other was closer to modern clothes. Emma said, Happy, tell me which one you like, and I'll buy it. Emma sure was puzzled. There are so many clothes, and she only likes two? Emma smiled. Do you really not understand Happy, or are you pretending not to understand? She's just afraid that you'll spend money. Emma sure shook his head. I said that I'm not short of money. How about this? Buy all the clothes she tried on just now as long as they fit. When the female shop assistant heard this, she immediately smiled like a blooming flower. Sir, you're so generous. Generous people usually have good luck. No wonder you have such a beautiful girlfriend. Emma nodded at Emma sure. Yes, that's right. Emma sure seemed to have thought of something and said to Emma, Oh right. By the way, pick some for yourself and your son. Take whatever you like. We don't lack money. Hearing this, Emma nodded gratefully. Thank you, master. What she was grateful for was not Emma sure letting her buy clothes for herself, but for buying clothes for her son. All her thoughts were on her son. Whoever treated her son well, she would naturally treat them differently. Upon hearing Emma sure's words, the shop assistant's eyes twinkled like stars in the clear night sky. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You are so generous. Another hour or so later, Emma chose more than 50 sets of clothes for Happy. She also chose more than 30 sets of clothes for her son. She had also chosen more than 20 sets for herself. Emma sure said to the clerk, Pack them all up and send them to the hotel. The shop assistant was so happy that his face was about to split open. Yes, sir. Don't worry. At that moment, Happy pointed at Emma sure and gestured with his hands. Brother Emma, I haven't bought it for you yet. Emma also found it strange. Master, you're not buying? Emma sure shook his head. I already bought a few the last time I went out. Emma sure didn't care much about external items like clothes. It was fine as long as he had something to wear. There was no need to be so particular. If he was too particular about external items, he would only end up being physically and mentally exhausted. Emma thought about it and helped Emma sure pick a few clothes with Happy. The female shop assistant finally understood what happiness was today. She sold the clothes one by one, and money went into her pocket. This was happiness. After buying the clothes, Emma sure and the others continued to wander around the streets. Other than the bazaar streets in Luoyang City, the other half of the streets were the poor district. The poor district was the complete opposite of the rich district. There were no colorful neon lights. There were no high-tech equipment either. Low and messy buildings, crowded and narrow alleyways. There were flickering street lights. It looked somewhat similar to many urban villages before the apocalypse on Earth. Emma sure and the others were also a little surprised by this. They were in the same city, but it was like two different worlds. Around 11 o'clock at night, the few of them ate something at the night market and planned to return to the hotel. In order to take a shortcut, Emma sure led the three of them through an alley in the slums. The alley was very long, more than 50 meters long. The alley was very dark, and the only street light bulb was broken. Emma's son was a little scared and held Emma's hand tightly. Happy also held Emma sure's hand tightly. Just as they reached the middle of the alley, Emma sure stopped in his tracks. He looked up and saw three people appear at the entrance of the alley in front of him. At the same time, three people also appeared at the entrance of the alley behind them. In the air above the alley, there were also three people on hoverboards. Emma sure looked over with the blood dragon's eye. He saw that among the 9 people, the strongest was a level 5 hunter. The rest of the people were basically level 3 hunters and below. The level 5 hunter slowly approached Mo Shi while speaking to the other hunters. Brothers, catch those 2 women and sell them to the Huichun brothel. With their beauty, they can definitely be sold for a good price. Someone said, Boss, it's a pity to sell these 2 beauties to the Huichun brothel. Why don't we keep them for ourselves, hee hee? The level 5 hunter glared at that person and scolded, You're such a good-for-nothing. You good-for-nothing. How many times have I told you that we're not lustful? We're just porters of beauty. That person quickly replied, Yes, yes. Right. Boss is right. Another person said, Boss said that there's a knife above the word lust. You'd better remember. Yes. Boss is right. Look at my brain. As the man spoke, he slapped himself in the face. Soon, the 9 people surrounded Mo Shi and the other 3. Boy, I'll give you a choice now. You can either obediently hand over your 2 women and leave, or you can fight to the death and end up dead on the street. But your 2 women will still be taken away by me. In the face of such people, Mo Shi was too lazy to talk to them. He said to Happy beside him, Happy, cover your eyes, because what happens next will be very bloody and violent. Hearing this, Happy obediently closed his eyes. Emma also quickly covered her son's eyes. When the 9 people heard Mo Shi say this, they also understood what Mo Shi meant. One of them pointed at the tip of Mo Shi's nose and scolded, Boy, is there something wrong with your brain? Do you really think that you can fight the 9 of us alone? Before he finished speaking, his right hand that was pointing at Mo Shi turned 180 degrees back and stuck tightly to his forearm. Chapter 307. Before that person could finish his words, Mo Shi suddenly made his move. He grabbed that person's right hand and bent it backward. Gotcha! That person's entire right hand was bent backward at an 80-degree angle. It was actually stuck to his forearm. Ah! That person instantly let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. When the rest of the people saw this, their expressions changed. The level 5 hunter in the lead hurriedly shouted, Attack together. Let's kill him together. The rest of the people responded and pounced toward Mo Shi. However, before they could touch Mo Shi, pooh! Another muffled sound was heard. Taking a closer look, they saw that Mo Shi's fist had stopped at the previous person's head. His fist was already dyed red with blood. As for that person's head, it had already exploded. When the rest of the people saw this, they all stopped attacking Mo Shi. The person who had just died was a level 3 hunter. And this kid did not use any energy. He only used his physical strength to explode that person's head with one punch. In that case, this kid's strength was simply ridiculously strong. Thinking of this, the 8 of them hurriedly condensed their genetic weapons. Mo Shi did not care about their genetic weapons at all. It was still a fist. He dodged one person's genetic weapon. He punched toward the joint between that person's genetic weapon and his shoulder. Gotcha! That person's genetic weapon, along with his entire right arm, fell to the ground. His entire shoulder drooped down, looking like a piece of flesh that was about to fall off from his body. Then, another kick. Bang! Another kick landed on the head of another person. That person's head flew out. It smashed into the wall beside him, smashing into pieces. When the rest of the people, including the level 5 hunter, saw this, they hurriedly turned around and wanted to escape. However, in front of Mo Shi's dragon shadow steps, all attempts to escape were futile. Bang, poo, bang, poo. Every time a punch landed on a person's head, there would be the sound of a rubber ball being smashed to the point of leaking air. Very quickly, the rest of the 8 people had died under Mo Shi's fists. Only the level 5 hunter, who was the strongest, was left. At this time, the level 5 hunter was in a panic. He saw that Mo Shi had already caught up to him. He hurriedly said, Wait a minute, I'm from the 702 mercenary group. Do you know the 702 mercenary group? Perhaps you've not heard about it before. However, after Chung clan in Yuzhou province died, the ranking of those forces behind them would rise by 1 rank. 702 mercenary group, previously ranked 101st. This time they will be ranked 100th. If you let me go, you'll be on good terms with 702 mercenary group. To be able to befriend such a force is definitely a good thing for you. Mo sure chuckled and shook his head. 702. I'm F*King 502. Then, he raised his sandbag-sized fist and was about to continue punching. When that person saw this, his expression changed greatly. His eyes were filled with terror as he screamed hysterically, "Brother Li, you've been killed! No, you can't kill me. If you dare to kill me, 702 mercenary group won't let you go." Mo sure was speechless at this idiot. He was about to die, yet he was still threatening him. He really didn't know what kind of sin his parents had committed in the past to give birth to such a thing. A force ranked around 100th was actually selling women. He punched out. Puff! The level 5 hunter's head also exploded. With Mo sure's current strength, even if he didn't use energy, dealing with a level 5 hunter was like playing with a toy. After killing this person, Mo sure took Happy, Emma, and the others back to the hotel. He took a shower and lay on the bed. Mo sure then checked the memories that he had just plundered. From these people's memories, Mo sure knew that 702 mercenary group was actually not a proper mercenary group at all. A normal mercenary group would basically only accept some tasks such as escorting, searching for lost items, hunting wild beasts, and so on. But 702 mercenary group, as long as you paid them, they would accept any kind of task. Big tasks such as robbing a fighter jet. Small tasks such as helping an old lady cross the road. No matter if it was a good or bad thing, no matter big or small, as long as there was money to be made, there was nothing they couldn't accept. So the entire 702 mercenary group was in a very strange position in Yuzhou. Whether it was good or bad, they both loved and hated it. They hated it because they did things without a bottom line and often did things that violated human relations and offended the heavens. They loved it because no matter which force, there were some things that couldn't be exposed. It was not good for them to personally deal with these things, so they secretly let 702 mercenary group do it. So although almost no force like 702 mercenary group, no force would be an enemy of 702 mercenary group. Now the 84th ranked Yuzhou family was destroyed. 702 mercenary group wanted to take this opportunity to become one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. After all, if they became one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou, 702 mercenary group's fame would be much greater. At that time, their performance would also be better. Seeing this, Mo sure took a sip of tea and smiled. It turned out to be a competitor. From the memories of those people, he already knew the strength of 702 mercenary group. It seemed that this competitor didn't have much competitiveness. This was the best, it would save trouble. Early the next morning, Mo sure and the others began to set off for Yuming Mountain. Not long after they set off, in another luxurious hotel, in a high-end suite, a middle-aged man with a mustache and a scar on his face frowned slightly. His multifunctional watch was turned on, and there were 5 people's faces on it. These 5 people were the 5 captains of 702 mercenary group. Haven't you found that disappointing son yet? The leader's voice was a little cold. They were supposed to set off for Yuming Mountain this morning, but they still couldn't find his son. Luo City was not peaceful now. Almost all the big forces going to Yuming Mountain would stay here. That disappointing son of his had loved to stir up trouble since he was young. If he caused trouble here, it would be troublesome. If he provoked some small forces, it would be fine. At most they could destroy that force. But if he provoked a big force ranked in the top 100, it would be really troublesome. The 5 captains projected by the multifunctional watch all shook their heads. Not found yet. Not found yet. I don't have any clues here. But one of the captains said, "My people found the young leader's body." What? Say it again. The leader of 702 mercenary group felt weak all over. In an instant, he seemed to have lost all strength and energy in his body. The captain paused for a moment, and finally spoke again. "We found the corpses of the young commander and his 8 followers in an alley. It seemed that they were killed by an extremely powerful master. Because almost everyone's head was blown up." Chapter 308. The leader of the 702 mercenary group heard the news of his son's death. His entire body went limp on the sofa. He only had one son. And as early as 17 years ago, he hurt his little brother when he was on a mission. It was impossible for him to have children in the future. Although this son of his didn't live up to his expectations, no matter what, he was still his only root. And now, the only root of his family was broken. In the video call, the 5 captains saw that the leader seemed to have aged dozens of years in an instant. He sat motionless on the sofa. They didn't dare to say anything. After a long time, the leader's eyes gradually changed from pain and anger to ruthlessness. He almost gritted his teeth and said, "Investigate. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you must find the murderer for me." Several people on the other side hurriedly said, "Yes, leader. Leader, I will bring the body of the young leader back first." One of the captains was silent for a moment, then asked tentatively, "Leader, are we still going to Netherworld Mountain?" The leader slowly raised his head. "Go! We want to let everyone see that our 702 mercenary group is not only ranked 100th. We want to let everyone know that our 702 mercenary group has the strength to compete for the top 50. It's best to catch the murderer before the martial arts tournament ends. I want to let everyone see what happens to those who dare to provoke our 702 mercenary group." When he said the last few words, he almost roared. And in the end, he almost lost his voice. His eyes were particularly red. At this time, Mo sure didn't know any of this. Even if he knew, he didn't need to care too much. If the 702 mercenary group really dared to come to his door, he would dare to destroy them. After an hour, Mo sure and the others entered the Netherworld Mountain. There was a fog in front of them. Some of these mists were faint green, while others were faint blood red. Some was purple. This was known as the most terrible miasma in the entire Yuzhou. 9-colored miasma. The 9 colors represented 9 different elements. If the strength of a hunter below level 5, they couldn't withstand the 9-colored miasma at all. However, as a vampire, Emma's physique couldn't be measured by a human's physique. As a prophet, although she usually looked like an ordinary person, her physique couldn't be measured by an ordinary person's physique. The little monk's telekinesis had also reached level 1 psychic master, so he could block the miasma outside. Only Emma's son made Mo sure slightly worried. With a thought, he spoke in his mind. "System. Sign in at a special location." Soon, the system notification sound in his mind frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, 9-colored miasma area. Sign in reward, a protective suit. Soon, a protective suit appeared in Mo sure's backpack. From the outside, this set of protective clothing was not the kind of bulky protective clothing on Earth. Instead, it was a protective suit that resembled a bodysuit. With a protective mask. The mask didn't look like the heavy helmets on Earth either. It was like Spider-Man's tight-fitting mask, which could fit the head tightly. Mo sure checked the information about this protective suit in his mind. Protective suit. It can be tightly attached to the body and resist outside toxins, viruses, and bacteria. The protective mask can filter the outside air and turn it into harmless air for people to breathe. At the same time, this protective suit can protect against high heat, cold, and other effects. Mo sure nodded. It was just right for Emma's son to wear. He took out the protective suit and handed it to Emma. "Put it on your son." Emma's eyes were filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Master." Mo sure nodded. "Don't call me Master in the future, it sounds awkward. It doesn't sound good in front of outsiders." Emma nodded. "Then I'll call you Mr. Momo sure shook his head. Mr. Mo isn't used to it either. Emma was stunned and looked at the little monk. "Then I'll call you Boss." Mo sure smiled. "Yes, sure." Emma nodded. "Thank you, boss." As she spoke, she put on the protective suit for her son. It was strange. The protective suit for an adult didn't seem too big on Emma's son. Moreover, the protective suit was slowly shrinking until it was tightly attached to his body. Then he put on the protective mask. Mo sure said to Emma, "With this protective suit, your son will be able to travel through the miasma without any problems." Then, the group of 15 people went up the mountain. Entering the miasma, Emma was a little worried about her son at first. But after a while, seeing that her son was fine, she was relieved. The Nether Mountain was very big. The slope of the whole mountain was very gentle. They slowly went up along the Nether River. The water of the Nether River was black. With a glance, one could tell that it must contain some kind of harmful element. But in this black river, One could see a few fish swimming happily from time to time. This was a very strange thing. But no one was curious enough to go and check it out. After all, they had more important things to do this time. Along the way, they also saw some people from other forces. But the other forces had at least 100 people, and at most 200 or 300 people. In comparison, Mo Shi and the others were very shabby. They only had 15 people. When Mo Shi and the others passed by, they could hear the discussions of those people from time to time. Which force is this? Why are there so few people here? I don't know. I've never seen them before. Could it be a small force that knows that the 100th place is empty, so they want to fish in troubled waters? Well, it's very likely. Mo Shi and the others ignored these people's discussions. Of course, there were also some people who started to talk about Happy and Emma. Damn beauties! Both of them are stunning. One is pure and cute, the other is a feast for the eyes. Kiske, both of them are the best. What kind of luck does that kid have to be able to get two such beautiful girls? I don't have a F**king girlfriend. Not only does this kid have one, but he has two. Not only two, but both of them are stunning. I feel like I've received 10,000 points of critical damage. Of course, there were also some forces who saw these two women and secretly had ideas in their hearts. Mo Shi felt a little troubled. Originally, he wanted to bring Happy out to relax and see the world. He didn't expect to attract so many people's attention. It was really a little troublesome. However, with Mo Shi's current strength, if anyone provoked them, they would be in real trouble. They walked up along the Nether River. Gradually, it was as if it was autumn. The temperature dropped a lot. Red and yellow leaves began to appear all over the mountains. After walking up for a while, it seemed to be winter again. The surroundings were covered in thick snow. They walked up again, passed through the thick sea of clouds, and the sun shone down. At this time, the temperature actually rose a lot. Looking around, all kinds of strange flowers bloomed around them. Some birds that could survive at high altitudes competed with each other to sing. It was as if it was spring in an instant. Chapter 309. All the way up from Mount Hades. They went through summer, autumn, and winter. They thought that the higher they went, the colder it would be. At the top of the mountain, it would be a world of ice and jade. Unexpectedly, when they passed through the thick sea of clouds, the scene in front of them changed again. 100 flowers bloomed and 100 birds sang. It made them feel like they were back in spring. They went up the mountain and experienced the 4 seasons. This feeling was truly marvelous. Above the sea of clouds was the top of Mount Hades. Because it was like spring all year round, it was called Huichun Peak. However, Mo Shi always felt that it sounded like the name of a brothel. Huichun Peak was very big. It was more than 20 kilometers from east to west. It was about 15 kilometers from north to south. There were towering ancient trees and waterfalls on the entire Huichun Peak. In the center of Huichun Peak, there was a huge open space the size of a stadium. It was surrounded by grandstands formed by stone steps. In the center was a huge arena. The arena was square, with a side length of more than 400 meters. At this time, there were still more than 2 hours before the start of the martial arts tournament. However, those in the top 100 were basically all present. However, this year, there were not only 100 powers, but as many as 115. These extra powers all knew that the 100th place was vacant after the Cheng family of Yuzhou was destroyed. They felt that their powers had a chance to compete for the 100th place. This was also the usual practice. As long as a power was extinguished or suffered a great change and suddenly declined, the power behind it would rise by 1. The vacant 100th place would be fought for by the other powers through competitions. Firstly, it was to redetermine the rankings of the powers outside the 100th place. Secondly, it was to let the other powers know their specific strength. Mo Shi didn't have much interest in these rules and the like. He asked a hunter next to him to understand the rules and tell him the key points later. When the other powers saw that Mo Shi and the others only had 15 people, they were all a little confused. Only 15 people wanted to compete for the 100th place. This was simply looking down on the other powers. Some nosy people came over to inquire. Hey, what sect are you from? Or a gang? A mercenary group? Mo Shi said casually. The world gang. Things like naming were the most troublesome. Therefore, he directly used the names of the gangs in the comics on Earth. Furthermore, he was the only one in the entire world. World Society, this name, just hearing it gave off such a domineering aura. PFFF. When the meddlesome person heard this, he immediately laughed. He pointed at Mo Sher's group of 15 and said, "With just these 15 people, you dare to call yourself the World Assembly? Then wouldn't our sect be called the Genesis sect?" Mo Sher smiled and said, "Sure. However, you changed the name of your sect on the spot. Isn't that disrespecting your master and destroying your ancestors? Isn't that disgraceful? Aren't you afraid of being dismembered by your fellow disciples?" The busybody glared at Mo Sher. "You win." With that, he left Mo Sher and the others. Finally, when the sun shone directly overhead, all the forces had basically arrived. All of the 100-plus forces were sitting on the spectator stands. As for the top 10 major powers, they were seated in the best seats. Each of them sent a high-level representative to sit on the rostrum next to the ring. Everyone was talking and laughing. "Look, those 10 people are the big shots of our Yuzhou. Most of all, how can the high-level members of the top 10 forces not be big shots? These 10 people can stir up a storm in Yuzhou and destroy other forces with a smile." Mo Sher looked at the 10 people one by one. He probed with the blood dragon's eye. He found that among the 10 people, the strongest was the village chief of the number 1 force, the Corpse Village, a level 4 desolate hunter. The rest of the big shots were also desolate hunters. 2 level, 3 desolate hunters and 7 level, 2 desolate hunters. A smile appeared on Mo Sher's lips. The strength of these so-called big shots was just any one of them couldn't withstand a single blow from the Sea Dragon clone. Of course, Mo Sher wouldn't be complacent because of this. If he really wanted to fight, he wouldn't be careless at all. Just as everyone was envious of the 10 big shots of the major forces, hundreds of people wearing green training uniforms, tactical helmets, and green tactical flying hoverboards descended from the sky one after another. Behind them, 100 combat mechas slowly descended. Everyone was amazed when they saw this. "The military is here. Look, the military of Yuzhou province is here. Damn, so many combat mechas. The Yuzhou military is worthy of being an existence independent of the top 100. Yeah, why else would they say that the top 100 forces are one tier, while the Yuzhou military is the only one?" After the 100 or so soldiers of the Yuzhou military landed one by one, their postures were standard. Behind them, more than 100 combat mechas also slowly descended. Even the movements of these mechas were in perfect sync. The person leading the military was the head of the Yuzhou military, Commander Lu Shuming. Behind him, one on the left and one on the right, were 2 division commanders. Mo Sher glanced at them with the blood dragon's eye. He saw that Commander Lu Shuming was a level 5 desolate hunter. The 2 division commanders behind him were also level 4 desolate hunters. Mo Sher was secretly surprised. As expected of the Yuzhou military, just the strength of these 3 people alone could crush the big shots of the other 10 forces. What was a real big shot? This was what a real big shot was. Mo Sher looked at the other people of the Yuzhou military. Basically, they were all level 1 desolate hunters. Mo Sher was secretly speechless again. Since when did desolate hunters become so worthless? More than 100 level 1 desolate hunters. The strength of the Yuzhou military was not just for show. Coupled with the more than 100 mechas, this group of people alone could probably wipe out the other forces present. And this was only the tip of the iceberg of the Yuzhou military. Then how terrifying was their total strength? Before, Mo Sher felt that the strength of the people he brought was not bad. But compared to the Yuzhou military, it was still too weak. It seemed that after returning this time, he would have to properly expand the strength of the base. It would not be too late to come out when the strength of the base could contend with the Yuzhou military. At this time, the big shots of the top 10 forces saw the big shots of the military appear. They hurriedly stood up and greeted them with flattering smiles. Commander Lu Shuming nodded at the big shots. He smiled and said, Sit. We are all old acquaintances. No need to be polite." But although he said so, no one dared to sit down first. After all, the other party's strength was here. Who would dare to be rash? After Lu Shuming sat down, The two division commanders behind him also sat down. Only then did the leaders of the other major forces take their seats. Chapter 3:10. After all the big shots took their seats, the village chief of the first-ranked corps village cupped his hands to Lu Shuming and said, "Commander Lu, please say a few words to boost everyone's fighting spirit." Lu Shuming waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I hate long speeches the most." The village chief of the corps village nodded and said, "Yes, yes." Then he raised his head and said loudly to the crowd, "The fact that all the major forces are here to participate in this martial arts competition is enough to show the prosperity of the Yuzhou cultivation world. Commander Lu hates long speeches the most, so I won't say any more nonsense. However, as everyone knows, the Cheng family ranked 84th has been destroyed, and the forces behind them have risen one rank. Therefore, the 100th rank is vacant. Therefore, before the martial arts competition begins, the few forces ranked after the 100th rank will have a small competition to compete for the 100th rank. The rules of the competition are that each force can send out 3 people to compete in groups. The force that can last until the end will be the 100th rank in Yuzhou. Now, may the forces that want to compete for the 100th rank send out their respective candidates to the arena." The 15 forces that wanted to compete for the 100th rank had already figured out the rules. They had already chosen their disciples. A total of 45 disciples from these forces went up the arena. When the disciples of these forces went up the arena, the crowd below also started discussing. "These 3 are from the Sky Eagle sect, right? They all have an eagle on their shoulders. Those 3 are from the White Ghost Gang. All of them are covered with a white sheet. These 3 women are from the Joyful sect. I heard that the Joyful sect is full of beauties. It's true. I think there's no need to compete. Let the Joyful sect rank over the 100th rank. In the future, there will be more beauties to watch in various competitions. Look at you, I think the Lily sect is better. Their female leader, hee hee." Seeing this, Mo Sure said to Emma, who was beside him, "This is a good opportunity. This is a good opportunity for actual combat. Go and have a try." Emma nodded and said, "Boss, I can try, but if I can't stand to the end?" Mo Sure smiled and said, "That's not possible." Then he said to a desolate hunter behind him, "Xiaoming, you go." Emma was relieved. Xiaoming was a desolate hunter. No matter how strong these factions were, it was impossible for them to send a single desolate hunter. Therefore, he was definitely going to win this time. The desolate hunter named Xiaoming was immediately overjoyed. He gratefully said to Mo Sure, "Thank you, Mr. Mo, for giving me this opportunity. I will do my best." If Mo Sure had not allowed him to absorb the night ghost spirit, he would have been a nobody for the rest of his life. Not to mention becoming a hunter. Even becoming a hunter would be extremely difficult. How could he have the chance to stand on the arena and compete with the disciples of the top 100 forces of Yuzhou? Mo Sure hurriedly shook his head and said, "Don't. You are a desolate hunter. If you go all out, how can others play?" Xiaoming said, "Then should I restrain myself a little?" Mo Sure nodded. "Yes, restrain yourself." Very quickly, 45 people from the other 15 forces were already standing on the stage. At this moment, Emma and Xiaoming also planned to enter the ring. However, he was stopped by a staff member next to the ring. "What are you doing?" Emma replied, "Participating in the competition." The staff member looked at Emma from head to toe, then looked at Xiaoming from head to toe. "What force are you? Did you report it before?" Emma was puzzled. "You still need to report it?" The staff member said, "Of course. If you don't report it, how would we know what force you are? We don't even know your background. Otherwise, do you think any random force can participate in the competition?" Emma frowned slightly. "Then we will report it now." The staff member shook his head. "It is too late to report it now. We..." Just as he said this, one of the big shots on the rostrum looked over. The staff member's forehead was immediately covered in sweat. He waved his hand at Emma. "Go, go, go. If you don't report it, you can't participate in the competition." Naturally, Emma also saw the big shot's gaze. She had a charming smile on her face. "We have traveled a long and arduous journey to come here. How can we just leave like that?" If I can't participate in the competition today, I won't leave. The staff member looked back at the big shot and said to Emma, "Big sister, can you take it as me begging you? The rule is that you have to report it. If you don't report it, you can't participate in the competition. Don't cause me to lose my job." Emma smiled charmingly. "If you don't let us participate in the competition, then I will cause you to lose your job. That's fair, isn't it?" The staff member smiled bitterly. "Big sister, can you stop fooling around?" Wait. At this point he looked back. He saw that the big shot's expression was already a little ugly. His heart couldn't help but tremble. Then he gritted his teeth. All right, you guys go to the arena first. I will help you through the express channel to report it. What is the name of your force? What is the name of your leader?" Emma smiled and didn't say anything else. "We are called World Society. The leader is Wuxia." The staff member was stunned. He had never heard of such a force among the top 100 forces. However, he didn't have time to think too much at this moment. He quickly wrote it down on his multifunctional watch. He said to Emma and Xiaoming, go to the arena, quick." Then, he quickly reported it in the backstage database. In his opinion, he had never even heard of this force before. Naturally, they didn't have much strength. It was probably just one round. Once they were eliminated, no one would pay attention to them. Then naturally, no one would notice this small oversight in his work. However, just as Emma walked to the arena, the staff member asked again, "How many people are there in your force?" Emma thought for a moment and replied, 50,000. There were indeed 50,000 people in the base. The staff member asked again, "You are only sending 2 people to participate in the competition?" Emma nodded. The leader said that there is no need for more. Originally, he only wanted to send 1 person, but in order to let me gain some experience, he sent me to fight. That staff member was speechless. This sect was really arrogant. They didn't care about the other forces ranked around the top 100 at all. Soon, all 16 forces, including World Society, had a total of 47 people standing in the arena. The referee used the holographic projection screen to draw lots for these 47 people on the spot. The result of the draw was that Emma had a bye in the first round. In other words, she was considered to have entered the next round. The staff member was a little confused. Damn, why was it so close? If he had known earlier, he would have let World Society send another person. There would be 48 people, and there wouldn't be a bye. Now, this woman had a bye and directly entered the next round. If the other big shots noticed this and asked about this force, they would definitely be killed. Wouldn't he be in danger? Chapter 3:11. Emma was given a bye, which surprised the staff member who reported to them. She got a bye in the first round. Could it be such a coincidence? But what was done could not be undone. It was too late to think of a way to remedy the situation. He could only pray in his heart that the man with this woman would be eliminated. In the next round, this woman would also be eliminated. Then everything would be fine. Soon, the drawing of lots was completed. The 46 people on the stage stood according to the opponents drawn. The 46 people were divided into 23 groups and fought at the same time. With the referees begin. The 46 people on the stage began to move. At this moment, bang! A figure had already been sent flying out of the arena. He flew hundreds of meters away and smashed into the stands. This person was none other than the strong man who was favored by everyone before. This strong man's strength had reached level 5. Among all the people in this competition, although he was not the highest, he was not low either. And the strong man was a strength-type player. With his powerful strength, it was not a problem for him to challenge people of a higher level. But he was sent flying with just 1 punch. This made everyone feel incredulous. Then they looked at that person's opponent. This was a middle-aged man who looked ordinary. From any aspect, he could not be more ordinary. However, it was him who sent a seeded player flying with just 1 punch. Who is he? I don't think there was this person in the information I got before. Yeah, I haven't seen him either. And on the sidelines, the staff member saw this scene and was suddenly dumbfounded. How could it be? He just casually reported to them, thinking that they were just a round trip. He did not expect him to be so strong that he sent a seeded player flying with just one punch. This was F*King ridiculous. Then he looked at the big shots on the rostrum. He saw that the big shot's eyes were also focused on that person at this time. The staff member was even more panicked. It's over. It's really over this time. This guy was so strong that he had already attracted the attention of the big shots. As long as they did a little investigation, they would find the oversight in his work. Would he still be working in the future? As for Mo Shi, his eyes were fixed on Lu Shuming at this time. He tried to plunder Lu Shuming's memories to see what secrets the military had. In the end, he discovered that for some reason, he was unable to snatch his memories. About 5 minutes later, the remaining groups also had their winners and losers decided. Out of the 47, only 24 remained. These 24 people only had 5 minutes to rest. During the break, the referee had already arranged for the drawing of lots. 5 minutes later, the battle continued. According to the results of the draw, Emma's opponent was a level 4 hunter. Xiao Ming's opponent was a level 6 scavenger. Apart from Xiao Ming, this level 6 hunter was the highest level among all the people in the ring. Therefore, in this battle, he was the focus of the most attention. The battles continued at the same time. Emma's opponent couldn't help but gulp when he saw Emma's sexy figure. Beauty, be careful. I won't hold back. Emma sneered and said, the one who should be careful is you. Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly jumped out and attacked the man. Seeing this, the man was slightly taken aback. This woman's speed was so fast. But soon, the man came back to his senses. Her speed was very fast, but that was it. As a level 6 hunter, he had an absolute level suppression on this woman. So what if this woman's speed was fast? Thinking of this, he avoided Emma's attack, and then threw a punch at Emma. Emma gently dodged and avoided the punch. Then her right hand turned into a claw and grabbed the man's back. After a few more rounds, the man's face gradually became dignified. His level was obviously 3 levels higher than the opponent. As a result, during the battle, not only was there no level suppression, but he was restrained everywhere. Sometimes, he even had to retreat a few steps to avoid this woman's attack. This woman was really too strange. However, this was just the beginning. After the two fought for 10 rounds, the man's speed obviously decreased a lot. His reaction seemed to be always half a beat slower. The man's heart secretly trembled. Not good, it's over. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, he saw the woman's foot had already kicked his chest. He quickly wanted to dodge. Originally, with his speed, dodging was not a problem. But just as he was about to dodge, he found that his body seemed to have suddenly sunk into a quagmire. Every step would be restricted. Every movement would be restricted. Finally, Emma kicked him. He wanted to dodge, but because he was restricted, he couldn't dodge and flew out of the ring. All this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in just a short minute. Everyone at the scene was stunned again. Damn, this woman is so strong. She dealt with a level 6 hunter, the highest level among all the people in the ring. In the end, it only took a minute to blast the opponent out of the ring. She seems to have used telekinesis and hunter dual cultivation. Not only is she strong, but she is also beautiful. If I had such a wife, Tessa. The higher-ups on the rostrum also noticed Emma at this time. After all, no man could resist the charm of such a sexy woman. Even a man who was not lustful would look at her more. Unless this man was gay. However, at this moment, something that happened on the other side attracted their attention. Another person flew out of the ring. It was the previous person who did it again. Although it took a little longer this time, it was only because he didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he waited until Emma defeated her opponent before he made a move. In his view, Emma was Mo Shi's woman. Since she was Mr. Mo's woman, she must be in front of everything. Therefore, he waited until Emma defeated her opponent before he made a move. And the first move was an instant kill. The referee looked at the data in the background of his multifunctional watch. After being stunned for a moment, he announced, World Society, Emma, Xiaoming win. Hearing the referee's words, the audience in the stands were stunned. What is World Society? I've never heard of it before. Whether I've heard of it or not, in short, the strength of world society is really strong. And at this time, when the staff saw Emma and Xiao Ming win again, he was dumbfounded. He thought that these two people would be eliminated in one round. But he didn't expect that these two people would break into the third round. And in such a fierce and overbearing way. He glanced at the rostrum. Without a doubt, these two people have now attracted the attention of those big shots. It's over. It's over. This time, it's really over. Chapter 3:12. The staff member looked at the rostrum. Sure enough, he saw that almost all the big shots were looking at the two people from the World Society. Some of the big shots glanced at their multifunctional watches from time to time, looking for information about the two people. But the information about the two people was pitifully little. Emma, disciple of the World Society. Xiao Ming, disciple of the World Society. The few big shots were slightly puzzled. World Society? They had never heard of it before. As for the two people's names, they had never heard of them before. This woman, from the aura that she released, she was obviously only a level 3 hunter. But she could defeat a level 6 hunter who was 3 levels higher. Moreover, she won so easily. She was definitely a genius-level cultivator. However, the big shots' gazes only stayed on Emma for a moment before they all turned to Xiao Ming. Everyone's expression was slightly strange. This was because when Xiao Ming attacked, they could sense from his aura that he was a desolate hunter. In Yuzhou, if there was a hunter in charge, even if he was not ranked in the top 100, they should have at least heard of such a force. But why have they never heard of the World Society? Could it be a newly established force? The staff member's clothes were already soaked in sweat. He shouldn't have agreed to their request just because the woman was a beauty. This time he was really done for. These big shots wanted to find out more information about the World Society. They wanted to find out more information about the two people. But they found that the information was basically blank. How could he explain it? He was afraid that he would have to give up his whole life here. But fortunately, these big shots did not seem to want to find trouble with him for the time being. Next, in the third round, Emma and Xiao Ming still entered the fourth round without any suspense. Then they entered the fifth round. At this time, there were only 3 people left in the arena. In addition to Emma and Xiao Ming, there was also a level 5 hunter. In the first 4 rounds, the level 5 hunter, except for the first round, which was easy, spent a lot of effort in the remaining rounds and finally passed by luck. On the other hand, Emma and Xiao Ming were having an easy time in every round. Basically, they only used less than a minute to finish the battle. At this time, there were fewer people in the arena. People's gazes were more focused. As a result, more people noticed Emma. Damn, what a beauty! Which sect is this? They actually have such a beautiful woman. I'll go back and tell Master that I want to leave the sect and pursue my dreams. I think you're crazy, aren't you? How dare you spout such nonsense? Meanwhile, the big shots on the rostrum had been paying attention to Xiao Ming's every move from beginning to end. Mo Shi, who was in the stands, felt a little bored at this time. This kind of competition was really meaningless. If he had the time, he might as well hide in the dragon's den and cultivate Long Wei. The small monk also felt sleepy. In his mind, any battle that he couldn't participate in was meaningless. If he had the time, he might as well spend it playing a few games. Very quickly, Emma drew the empty lot for the 6th round of the tournament. Xiao Ming's opponent was a level 5 hunter. This level 5 hunter belonged to the 702 mercenary group. When Mo Shi heard the words, 702 mercenary group, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. However, there were many people here. If he rashly attacked them, it would inevitably lead to a lot of unnecessary trouble. So he did not take any action. Within the 702 mercenary group, the general expression was as if their mother had died. Especially their leader, the expression on his face was as if his son had just died. They originally thought that their 702 mercenary group could easily take the top 100 this time. So they actually still held back their strength. Among the 3 people sent to the stage, the strongest was only a level 6 hunter. And they intended to wait until the later part of the competition to send the person with real strength. But they never thought that the guy sent out by the F*King World Gathering was too strong. Looking at the momentum of this battle, he had probably reached level 10 hunter. He crushed them all the way and did not even give them a chance to regret.
Now that they were level 5 hunters in front of the other party, it was obvious that they could only be abused.
Thinking of this, the leader of the 702 mercenary group was furious. His son had just died, and now he had lost the 100th place in the martial arts tournament. This was simply outrageous. And the reason for all of this was that the murderer had killed his son, causing him to be unable to prepare for the tournament. When he returned, he would definitely find out who did it. Then he would exterminate their entire family. The duel between Xiao Ming and the level 5 hunter of the 702 mercenary group was the same as the previous rounds. With just one punch, that person was blasted off the stage. The 10 big shots at the side of the stage once again looked at Xiao Ming. What kind of power is this world gathering? They sent out a hunter at the beginning. It's really a waste of talent.
Maybe they just want to be more stable and be able to get into the top 100.
However, if they were to send out their desolate hunters now, wouldn't they be at a disadvantage when the main competition starts?
Most of their desolate hunters would already be exhausted.
This is something that can't be helped. Perhaps the only person they can bring out in the world society is this desolate hunter. So, a trace of anticipation rose in everyone's heart. Now there were only 2 people left, and these 2 people were going to have a conversation between the strong. This was the most exciting moment before the big competition. Not only did the audience's enthusiasm soar, they were also constantly discussing. Who do you think will be stronger? Is there a need to ask? Of course it's that guy called Xiao Ming. He basically finished every match in seconds. That's not necessarily true. As the saying goes, heroes have a weakness for beauties. Maybe his heart softens and this woman seizes the opportunity, and he'll be gone. Yeah, you're right. In short, no matter what, of course I support the beauty. I'm a real man. Me too. The beauty will win. The beauty will win. In the audience, many people had already begun to support Emma. Of course, because of Xiao Ming's valiant strength, he had also obtained the support of many people. At this moment, the referee glanced at the 10 big shots. Then he announced, then the last match will be a duel between 2 disciples from the world gathering. The winner will be this time's champion.
Hua! The entire grandstand began to clamor.
Since the start of the competition, this was the highest point of the audience's emotions. The referee said to Emma and Xiao Ming, "If you're ready, you can start at any time."
Emma nodded. "I'm ready."
On the other side, Xiao Ming also nodded, "I admit defeat." The referee also nodded, "Since you're ready then, admit defeat." Chapter 313. The judge didn't know how to react. But Xiao Ming had already walked down the arena.
He knew that Emma was Mr. Mo's woman.
He went up the arena to fight for a spot in the world society, not to steal the limelight from Mr. Mo's woman. So, after defeating everyone else, he naturally admitted defeat. Seeing this, the judge could only smile bitterly. Since Xiao Ming from the world society has admitted defeat, the champion of this competition is Ms. Emma from the world society. The audience was speechless. Damn, this is what you're showing me? I've already taken off my socks. They felt like they had been F***ed. However, they were able to figure it out. After all, these 2 people were from the World Society. The World Society had successfully gotten the 100th place and would participate in the competition of the top 100 forces later. That was the main event. If they consumed too much energy now, it would be extremely disadvantageous for them in the competition later. At this moment, the judge reported the results of the competition. The 10 big shots still didn't know what kind of force the World Society was from the background data. But since it had already come to this, they could only announce the 100th place of all the forces in Yuzhou according to the results of the competition. As for the details of the World Society, they would have to wait until the martial arts competition was over to investigate in detail. Soon, one of the big shots announced in a clear voice. The 2 disciples from the World Society won the first 2 places in the competition. The World Society will be the champion of this competition.
According to the usual practice, they naturally became one of the top 100 powers in Yuzhou and were ranked at the 100th position.
The staff member felt dizzy when he heard the big shot's announcement. He had only prepared a case for the 2 people to avoid too much trouble. He thought that they would be eliminated soon after the first round. He didn't expect that the 2 of them would win the championship directly. What a joke.
This time they were really done for.
At the same time, after the big shot's announcement, there was sparse applause in the arena. The World Society disciples behind Mo Sure were all grinning from ear to ear. It had been less than half a year since their base came to this world. And in this short period of time, the strength of their base had reached the level of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. This was far beyond their expectations. Mo Sure was indifferent to this. A mere rank of 100 was not his goal at all. His goal was to become the champion of this year's martial battle assembly. The big shot continued. Rest for half an hour. In half an hour, the martial arts competition will begin. The rules of the competition are that the top 100 forces will each send 10 disciples to participate in the competition. In the end, whichever faction had more disciples in the top 10 would be ranked higher. This faction will obtain first place in this martial arts assembly. Basically, everyone who came here had a certain understanding of these rules. That big shot said again. Next, all the top 100 forces will submit the names of their 10 disciples to the organizing committee. We will draw lots to compete. Mo Sure looked at the 11 desolate hunters behind him. Then he said to the little monk, "Submit their names to the higher-ups." The small monk immediately turned on his multifunctional watch and operated it. But soon, Mo Sure spoke again. "Forget it. Little Ming doesn't need to go first. Let me do it." These 10 people were all desolate hunters. Logically speaking, they should be in the bag. After all, in every faction, desolate hunters were treasures. The purpose of a desolate hunter was to guard the faction so that the enemy would not dare to underestimate them. They were not used to compete in the martial arts assembly. After all, there were always accidents and deaths in a competition. If their desolate hunters were to die in a competition, it would not be worth it. Therefore, in the previous years, although desolate hunters would occasionally appear, the number was very small. However, Mo Sure was still a little worried. This year's competition was different from previous years. The rewards for this year's competition were too generous. It was inevitable that some factions would be tempted and send out their desolate hunters. This was especially true for the large forces that were ranked at the top. They would often send out a few or even a dozen desolate hunters. What if they really sent out a few desolate hunters for the sake of the rewards? After all, the desolate hunters that he had brought along had just been promoted to level 1 not long ago. Compared to them, they would not have any advantage at all. Therefore, Mo Sure decided to participate in the competition himself. With his current strength, he might not be able to crush a level 1 desolate hunter, but if it was a battle of attrition, he would still have a certain advantage. Of course, if he were to face a level 2 desolate hunter, he was afraid that he could only run away. However, it was still better than his own level 1 desolate hunter being crushed. The small monk nodded. He changed Xiao Ming's name to Mo Sure's and submitted it. Then, he lowered his head and continued to play the game. The small monk was not interested in the martial arts assembly.
Although he had always been a person who liked to fight, he liked the kind of battles that would really see blood, where it was either one of them dying or the other dying.
He did not like this kind of competition in the arena. At the same time, the 10 big shots looked at the name lists submitted by the various factions. Finally, their eyes fell on the name list of the World Society.
After all, they had some understanding of the other factions.
As for the people on the name list, most of them had some understanding. However, the World Society was too unfamiliar. They had just used Chengdu and Suzhou to search for it on the internet. There was no World Society at all. In other words, this faction was very likely to have been established in the past 1 or 2 days. As for the names on the name list, they were even more unfamiliar with them. In the end, they could only give up on the research and wait until the end of the martial arts assembly to investigate. Finally, half an hour had passed. The results of the draw were out. In the first round, 1,000 people would have to fight 500 battles. Because of the limited space, the first round was divided into 10 groups of battles. Mo Sure looked at the 3D image floating above the arena, projecting the name list. His opponent was a person called Duanmu Yi from the 88th ranked Duanmu family. He turned his head to look at the Duanmu family. The 10 contestants from the Duanmu family were sitting in the second row of the family. The Blood Dragon's Eye was activated, and the levels of these people quickly appeared. They were all level 8 desolate hunters and above. The strongest one was a level 10 desolate hunter. He then turned his head to look at the contestants from the other factions. Their levels were almost all level 8 Desolate Hunters and above. During this period, Desolate Hunters would appear from time to time. Among all the contestants, the strongest one was a level 2 Desolate Hunter. Mo Shi frowned slightly. There was actually a level 2 Desolate Hunter. These factions simply did not care about martial ethics. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.